Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto teleported in Devil May Cry and got Harem? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Namikaze09 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Sound of electricity piercing flesh and bone was heard throughout the area. Both Kakashi's, Zabuza's and Haku's eye widen in shock at what just happened. Naruto just used himself as a shield to protect Haku from Kakashi's attack Rakiri, which pierced through his chest and out of his back. The blonde boy coughs up a huge amount of blood which pours out of his mouth and falls onto the concrete of the bridge. The look on Haku's face was one of awe, fear and sadness. The boy she just met for only a day saved her life by sacrificing his own. And Naruto-kun. Why? Why did you do it? She asks while tears formed into her eyes. Naruto somehow manages to hear this and turns his head weakly at the ice user, and a weak smile appears on his face. Because you shouldn't throw your life away like that. Haku-chan cough. You and I are similar. We both suffered and both were hated for something we had no say in. I wish we could have met on a different occasion too, but it seems I won't get the chance to see you live your own life. He says and then looks back at the fading Rakiri that entered into his chest cavity, and when it's gone, he pulls out Kakashi's hand while grunting in pain. When he finally removes it, shocking the copy nin, a sickening squelch was heard and he falls to the ground while a puddle of his own blood forms on the ground. Haku realized what had happened and then tears fell from her face. Naruto-kun. She cried out and ran towards him and kneeled down. The blonde's breathing started to become shallow and darkness was about to take his vision over. Please don't go. You're the only person aside from Zabuza-sama to ever connect with me. Please don't leave me. She begged while tears fell from her face and onto his cheek while he smiled a smile that was filled with his own blood. Sorry Haku-chan, but appears that life can be cruel to anyone, especially the innocent. I'm sorry. He says while his lids become heavy, scaring Haku. No. Stay awake, you baka. Stay awake. She screamed out as more tears dropped onto the blonde. Zabuza, who was watching this, couldn't help but admire the boy's resolve. I can't believe it. This boy, no young man, saved mine and Haku's life. Why would he save the enemy, and how does Haku know him? Did she meet him when I was recovering? Kakashi, however, looked away from his fallen student. The dogs that were latched to Zabuza disappeared into a puff of smoke and he lets out a painful grunt. Haku, he started to say to the now sobbing and broken girl who was watching her first friend pass away slowly. Him, Kakashi, Haku, Tazuna and Sakura heard a laugh from the other side of the bridge. It was Tazuna and what appeared to be 100 thugs, while in the middle of the gap was a short man in a black suit grinning. Well, would you look at this? The demon of the mist and his bitch are defeated by a bunch of brats. How pathetic. He says out loud while the other thugs laugh. Zabuza glares at the man while Haku looks up in shock to see Gato. Naruto looks up weakly and glares at the man too. So that's the team who killed Inari's dad. He says and finds it hard to give into the darkness. Gato grins as he looks at the situation. Zabuza tries to pick up Kubikiri Honcho, but his arms were in pain and were weak. Kakashi's chakra was low and he couldn't use another Rakiri unless he wanted to pass out again. Once I kill you fools, I'll have my men ransack the village. But I think I'll keep the women alive for stress relief, especially that bitch that broke my arm. I'm gonna enjoy making you scream before I give you to my men. He says while laying his and the men give her a lecherous look. Haku's eyes widen in fear when she heard that and couldn't fight back due to how much chakra she used up. Naruto heard this and his eyes widened in horror and he started to leak a small amount of murderous intent out. Zabuza's eyes widened in fury and he somehow managed to lift up his Zanbatsu. The only way you're getting to her, Gato, is over my dead corpse. He snarled out and took a step forward. DCH. As if you can do anything, fool. Whoever brings me his head and that bitch first will be paid in double. He yells out while the men yell out a war cry and start to charge. No. I won't let that bastard touch Haku-chan. He ranted in his mind and struggled to get up. Damn it, why am I so weak? I'm tired of being weak. I want power. The power to protect my comrades and loved ones, damn it. I want power. He cries out in his thought while a bluish-purple aura slowly surrounds his body. Mindscape. Naruto finds himself in a sewer with a cage in front of him with the kanji seal on it. That was when a pair of red slitted eyes appear behind the cage and looks down at Naruto. The eyes then become the head of a large fox. Naruto looks at the fox in shock, but then the fox grins while it starts to glow and shrink. The glow becomes human-shaped and in front of Naruto was the most beautiful woman he's ever laid eyes on. Her face was heart-shaped and she had ruby-red slitted eyes and ivory-colored skin. She wore a crimson kimono with what appeared to be black suns on them and it hugged her hourglass figure. Her assets were decupped and seemed to be not too big and not too small. Her long flowing red hair was a reddish-orange color, and fox ears appeared to be on her head. 9 flowing reddish-orange tails swayed behind her, and she also had a slit in her kimono, which showed off her long Y legs. She also had on ruby red tick. Naruto couldn't help but blush at the sight, and she let out a devious grin, and an unknown force pushes him towards the cage. She then reaches out and caresses the boy's face with hands. "Do you want power, boy? The power to protect those you cherish?" She asks in a calming and melodic voice. Huh? He asks while she repeats the question. "I ask you if you wanted power. Power that would make you strong enough to protect anyone you cherished?" Kyuubi asks. "Yes, but what does me wanting power to protect Haku-chan have to do with you, Kyuubi?" Naruto asks while the fox eyes. "Because boy, you have just activated your bloodline, one that surpasses all the others. I can fully activate it, but I want freedom," she says, and Naruto steps back. "No way. You'll just finish what you started 14 years ago. Plus it's your fault my life was a living hell in the first place. Why the hell should I trust you?" He yells, and she gets angry and releases a wave of killer onto the frightened boy. "Because you have no other choice, you stupid fool. Did you forget what that man plans on doing to that ice girl and the females of the village? I'm trying to help you awaken your ancestors' bloodline. A bloodline that'll make all others look like a joke. And do you actually think I attacked your village for the fun of it? Well, guess what, ninja? I didn't have a say in the matter." She yells out, making his mindscape shake from her voice, and Naruto falls on his ass with wide eyes. She breathes in and out to calm down and speaks up. "Listen to me, kid, you have to trust me with this. I'll tell you everything if you just trust me for now. Also, your bloodline has the ability to keep me in check. Even if I wanted to do something, it'll stop me due to how powerful it is. So what will it be?" Naruto gets up and thinks about it. This power he had could make him stronger and save Haku, but what about the cost? Will he become a monster? A demon? The very creature his so-called village despises? Screw it. If my bloodline will make me strong enough to save Haku-chan, then I'll do it. Screw the consequences. If I become the very thing they hate, then so be it. He thought, and looks up at Kyuubi with a look of determination and strength in his eyes. "I'll do it. I'll keep my word to set you free, but you must keep yours and tell me what happened that night. Does that sound fair?" He asks, and she nods. "I promise, kid. Now get ready, because this will hurt a lot. To think that this boy's family are the descendants of Sparta. What's even more shocking is that his devil's blood is even more powerful than that of Dante and Virgil's blood. If this boy manages to fully master it, he'll probably be on par if not above Sparta's level of power. He'd also make a great mate," she thought with a small blush on her face, and when her eyes glow red, Naruto suddenly screams out in pain and vanishes from his mind. Outside world. The bluish-purple energy that surrounds Naruto's body grows bigger and bigger while his eyes become red and his breathing became raspy. Gato's men got ready to charge at the weakened Nin, and when they started to, they stopped and froze in fear at the murderous intent and power they were feeling. Kakashi and Zabuza felt it too, and they looked over at the direction where it came from. Haku stopped crying and looked at Naruto's with wide eyes. His body that was surrounded by the aura and his eyes were glowing red. Naruto's breathing started to get raspier, and he started to slowly get up. The hole in his chest started to close up with steam rising from it, and his features started to change. His hair started to change. It got longer and spikier until it was shoulder length, and bangs appeared on the side of his face. It also changed from blonde to silver white, Tobirama's and Minato's hairstyle combined. The whisker marks on his face started to fade away, and the baby fat on his face and body started to shrink and became lean muscle, but not too lean. His orange jacket started to stretch and rip as he started to grow a little, and the incisors in his upper jaw became longer. Kakashi's eye widens in shock as he witnesses this and was trembling slightly for the power he was feeling. "What's this power I'm feeling from Naruto? Is the fox getting free? No, this isn't the Kyuubi's power, it's something else, and it's stronger than the fox's aura. What's happening to you, Naruto?" He thought as he watched the aura become stronger and swirl around the boy's body. Zabuza was sweating a little at the power. What the hell? This can't be chakra, it's too powerful. How can he unleash this level of power from his body and not be crushed by the pressure? He thought, and the former blonde snarled as his energy flared up instantly, sending a small shockwave around the area. Haku let out an eep while covering her face with her hands to keep the debris out of her face and eyes. Kakashi and Zabuza had to add chakra to their feet to avoid being sent flying off the bridge. Sakura passed out from the pressure, and Tazuna, who was holding onto the rail sweat, dropped when the girl passed out. She was supposed to protect me. Kami must hate me, he thought. Naruto's jacket and shirt ripped apart from the aura, revealing his now well-toned body. His head was looking down at the ground and his right hand was stretched out. "Come to me. Come to your new wielder," he thought in his mind. In a cave near the coast of Nami, a sheathed katana was laying on a rock until a bluish-purple aura surrounded it and it pulsed. It was kept in a black metal scabbard with a yellow tie hanging from the bottom of it. The wrapping around the hilt was white with black diamond pattern going down the cap to the guard, which like the cap was a brass color. The sword then floated into the air and it headed for the demonic aura it sensed. At the bridge, Naruto's hand was still stretched out and a gleam appeared from the sky and then an katana headed straight for the blonde and it landed into his hand. Naruto felt the sword pulse in his hand and heard a voice whisper to him. "A warrior fallen from grace. The power of darkness gives birth to new weapons and skills." In Naruto's mind, flashes of a man with set back spiky white silver hair, a blue trench coat, wearing all black and an katana in his hand, was standing on the platform of a tower while rain fell from the sky. Another flash appears, and he sees the man performing a series of teleporting and slashes while killing strange creatures, and then fighting a man with silver white hair like him, only it wasn't set back, and was wearing a red trench coat, and fighting him with what looked a claymore connected with a skeleton that appeared to be the garden hilt. The last flashback that appears is with a man's hair similar to the man in the red trench coat with his sword stabbed into the other man's torso and says this. "Might controls everything and without strength you can't protect anyone or anything, let alone yourself." The flashbacks ends after that while Naruto stares at the blade. "Enma katana. Yamato," whispered Naruto as the aura started to shrink and only surround his body. Naruto's head rose, revealing a pair of glowing red eyes that were glaring at Gato and his men who were still shivering at his gaze. Naruto then started to slowly walk towards the men. He then speaks in a dark and cold tone. "The moment my body changed and my blood awakened, a voice echoed in my head, saying power, give me more power," he says, walking towards the frightened men, while Yamato's pulse becomes faster. "If I become a demon then so be it. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her, to protect Haku-chan, even if it means me being in exile. I will not let scum like you put your filthy hands on her or anyone else I care about," he says and places his left hand on the sheath and his right hand on the hilt. A tint of pink appears on Haku's face when she hears him vow to protect her from Gato. He then gets into a Badajutsu stance while glaring at Gato and his thugs. Gato snaps out of his daze and shouts. "Kill that brat and bring that bitch to me." The thugs once again yell out and charges at the now silver-haired blonde. Naruto looks at them and a cold smirk appears on his face. "Die," he says and instantly draws Yamato and performs a horizontal slash at them and pauses for a moment when an invisible slash heads for them and they stop when they get a funny feeling through their bodies. Naruto then performs a series of slashes at them and then turns his back at them and slowly sheathes his sword. "Hey, did you feel that? It felt like we got hit by a..." The thug didn't get to finish his sentence when Naruto fully sheathes the sword. A sing sound from the guard and sheath was heard. Blood, gore and body parts scatter from the thugs, but for those that weren't killed by the invisible attack, ended up losing limbs, as well as get cuts and gashes all over, and were letting out screams of pain and agony until they died. Gato starts to tremble in fear as Naruto turns around and starts to approach the frightened man. Gato tries to turn and run away, but Naruto once again draws the sword and sheathes it instantly. A slash mark appears on the man's back and blood sprays from it. The midget screams out in agony and pain and falls to his knees. Naruto had just skewered the man's spinal column, paralyzed the man from the waist down. Naruto then vanishes and appears with Yamato drawn in front of the man who was now whimpering as he gazed into the glowing red eyes of Naruto. "Please don't kill me. I was only kidding about making the girl and women in the village my pets. Please don't kill me," he begged, hoping the boy would let him live to see another day. Naruto just looks at the man and smirks. "I have another option for you, Gato. I'll let you go," he says while Gato lets out a sigh of relief, but then his body jerks and he looks down to see a silver blade pierce his stomach. He coughs up blood and then looks back up at Naruto, who had a dark expression on his face. "To hell that is. There you'll get to meet all kind of demons and monsters that people like you only dream of," he says and pulls the blade out his gut and then swings the sword at his head, loping it off while a fountain of blood sprays from the man's stump of a neck. Gato's head, which had a look of horror on his face, flew off the bridge and into the ocean. The blood from Gato's body gets all over Naruto's body and hair as he watches the body hit the ground with a thud. He then swipes the blood from the sword and sheathes it again. He then brings his hand up and swipes the blood out of his hair. Zabuza, Kakashi, Haku, and Tazuna had different expressions on their faces. Most of them were looks of amazement, shock, awe, and a little fear. Naruto looks at them and a small smile appears on his face while the aura fades away and his eyes return to normal. "It's over," he says, and then darkness takes over his vision and he collapsed while hearing Haku cry out his name. "Naruto-kun," she says while running towards the unconscious former blonde. 3 days later. Naruto finds himself in his mind again, but the only difference was that it wasn't a sewer, it was similar to a mansion. He walked through the hallway of the place until he saw a door with a kanji seal on it. He then blinks for a while and then opens the door only to see Kyuubi in her hybrid form sitting on a bed with her legs crossed and reading a red-covered book. Her ears twitch and she looks up to see Naruto staring at her and smirks. "Are you done checking me out, Naruto-kun?" she says while the blonde blushes and shakes his head at the vixen. "I didn't come here to flirt, Kyuubi. I came here because you promised to talk to me about my bloodline and what caused you to attack the village." He said in a tone that meant he wasn't in the mood for joking, and she sighs and puts the book down. "Very well, but before we start to chat you need some clothes on first," she said with a smirk on her face. Naruto blinks for a while and looks down, only to see he's in only a pair of black boxers and blushes. He then pictures some clothes into his thoughts, and now he was wearing a blue t-shirt and black pants. "Much better now, come and sit. I have a lot to explain about your heritage," she says, and he does that. When Naruto sits down, a scent of fruits entered his nose, which came from the Kyuubi, and was now holding back a blush and the thoughts that were entering his mind. The Kyuubi raises an eyebrow at this, but decides to ignore it for now. "Okay Naruto, I need you to pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you, but you must not interrupt, okay?" she asks, getting a nod from the blonde. She then snaps her fingers, and the area in front of them became a screen, and on it was a sky that was an orangish yellow color with the sun setting. Good. Now this all started back before even chakra or shinobi existed. 2,000 years ago the human realm and demon realm were at war with the human side losing very badly. She said while the screen flipped to the part where demons were attacking humans who were trying to fight back with strange weapons that fired metal pieces out of them. Then the screen switched to a chamber that was surrounded by darkness and red flames surrounded a throne where a figure with 3 red glowing eyes was sitting on it and was laughing evilly as he watched his minions take down the humans. The one who started this war was the ruler of the demon world and was also known as the Prince of Darkness. His name was Mundus. A demon who wanted to take over the human realm due to his belief that humans were an inferior species. Him and his generals were close to winning the battle until one of his generals had a change of heart and turned against him. When she says that a high-ranking demon was cut down by a double-edged sword. As the creature's figure fell, the one with the sword in his hand was flinging the blood off. He was a human-sized demon with cloven hooves, a semi-reptilian hide, a pair of sweeping horns, 2 pairs of insectoid wings, and 1 pair of chiropteran bat wings. His entire body appears to be made of grey armor with accents and overtones of Tyrian purple and features ornamental decorations such as gold trimming along his crown, a vertical red gem in his forehead, as well as gold knee and elbow guards. He was none other than Sparta, the legendary Dark Knight. He was a demon whose power was on par with Mundus. He betrayed his master and aided the humans in defeating the Dark Emperor. Kyuubi says while they watch Sparta take down demon after demon. He then confronts Mundus and they engage in a battle that made even the heavens tremble. Sparta managed to defeat Mundus and his army of demons and forced them back into the demon realm. He then sealed away the gates that linked the human world to the demon world by using his sword and pouring his power into it. For the next 2,000 years, he spent his time ruling over the humans and eventually met and fell in love with a woman named Eva, she said, and they then saw Sparta at a ball in his human form. His hair was swept back and he is portrayed as wearing a monocle and purple jacket. He was dancing with a woman who had long beautiful blonde hair and blue eyes. Her face and figure were flawless and she was smiling as she danced with Sparta, who also fell in love. After that, she was pregnant with his children. They were twin brothers named Virgil and Dante, the sons of Sparta. She said, and the screen showed 2 twin boys with shoulder-length silver hair. One was wearing blue and the other red. One day, however, Sparta disappeared, leaving Eva with their sons, and when they turned 8, Mundus managed to send a few demons to the human world and killed Eva, leaving her 2 sons alone. They then saw the bloody and dead form of Eva, while Dante and Virgil cried over the lose of their mother. This event changed both Virgil and Dante. Virgil took the path of power while Dante became a demon hunter. Sparta left Dante and Virgil with his other swords, Rebellion and Yamato. The sword you have now is Yamato. It is a sentient blade that is also the key to opening and closing the gates to the demon realm. It can also cut through anything including time and space and taking down someone at long distances. She said while Naruto's eyes widen. If you're wondering, no, you can't do that until you understand the style that goes with the sword, but I'm sure Yamato will help you once you get the basics of swordplay down. She says while the white-haired nin nods. Now instead of explaining Dante's and Virgil's past, I'll tell you about how your family is affiliated with Sparta and his sons. You see Naruto, your father was the one who sealed me inside of because he knew that your blood and power would keep me from escaping. He was Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage and Konoha's Kairoi Senku. When she said that, Naruto's eyes widened in shock and different thoughts went through his head. At first he was angry that his father did this and condemned him to a life of hell, but then he understood why he did it. But what pissed him off even more was that Sarutobi knew this and didn't even bother to tell him, and that the village didn't honor his father's dying wish. He then lets out a frustrating sigh and Kyuubi then continues. Well then, your father was the son of Dante and a female demon Trish, but when he was born Dante was sucked into a portal to hell, and Trish was attacked and fatally injured by a group of demons that she managed to kill, but was dying slowly. The group of Konoha who had the symbol of the wind and wave on their vests found her on the verge of dying, and she asked them to take her child and gave them an amulet that Dante gave her to give to Minato. They did that and she died right after handing your father to them. She said, and Naruto's face became sad. Now your father never knew about his demonic heritage, but he was capable of creating and making jutsu that made him feared and respected throughout the shinobi world. Now your father did discover his demonic heritage when he turned 17, but kept it a secret from everyone, even the Hokage. He also would have fully awakened his devil's blood, but then I attacked, and here's the reason why. The man wearing an orange mask and a red cloak that was black and had red clouds on it cast a genjutsu on me. I remember seeing a red eye with 3 tomo on it, so he must have been an Uchiha. Anyway, I went berserk and attacked the closest thing, and that was your village. Your father summoned the Shinigami and sealed me into you at the cost of his life. Now about your bloodline. It is called Devil's Blood and it is stronger than any other, but that doesn't make you invincible. Just like any other, you have to work in making it stronger. Now these are the abilities that your bloodline gives you. Since you are now half devil, your speed, strength, stamina, reflexes and senses have increased to superhuman levels, as did your healing factor. Even a strike to the heart wouldn't kill you. Also Naruto, while you were unconscious, your body structure changed so it could adapt to the power you awakened when you were at the bridge. So now you'll have the appearance of a 16-year-old and you're also taller now. She replied while Naruto's eyes grew wide at the info he gained on his father and family and spoke up. What about my mother? What happened to her? Naruto asks while she shrugs. I don't know. It's possible she died giving birth to you, but other than that, I don't know. Sorry kid. She says while the boy gets a downcast look on his face and then looks at Kyuubi. I see. Thanks Kyuubi. He says while she speaks up. Please call me Habara. Kyuubi is my title. So now that I gave you what you wanted to know, can I have what I want? She asks and Naruto looks at her for a moment and then nods. Yeah. A deal's a deal. I'll give you your freedom, but I decide on how much of your power you get, okay? Naruto asks and she nods. I agree. Also I have one more request. She said and Naruto groans. What is it? He asks and a small tint of pink appears on her face. I want you to be my mate. She says, and when those words came out of her mouth, Naruto jumped off the bed and away from her, while his eyes grew to the size of dinner plates. What? Are you serious? You want me to be your mate? Why? He screams out while Habara gets up and walks over to a shocked Naruto and leans over until their faces were inches from each other. Why you? Because I can tell that you'll become strong. Stronger than even Sparta and his sons. I also want to be a mother, but I want a mate who will be stronger than even me, both physically and mentally. That is all I want from you, Naruto-kun. I want a family, and being alone for 4 millenniums is not fun. Who knows? I might actually fall in love with you in the future. She says and caresses his cheek, making him shiver from the contact. She then stops and Naruto looks at her, trying to see if there is any form of deception in her eyes. I'll consider your request, Habara, but if he says, and she finishes. Fall in love with another? I don't mind sharing, plus I like both males and females, so don't worry. She says with a cheeky grin on her face and Naruto gapes like a fish. She then gives him a kiss on the nose and says this. If you ever need me for stress relief, just ask Naruto-kun. I promise you won't regret it. She says in a husky tone while giving him a view of her cleavage. Naruto then starts sputtering while she laughs at him and then he fades out of his mind. Outside world. The sun shined down on Naruto's face and he squints his eyes in pain for a while. He then slowly opens them and looks at the ceiling. He tries to get up only to feel a weight on his chest. He turns his head to see a girl with long silky raven hair sleeping on his chest and was wearing a pink kimono. It was Haku. Haku-chan. He says in his mind and he sees a strand of hair fall in front of her face. He lifts his left hand and brushes it away back into her hair and he hears her stir for a while. She then opens her beautiful brown eyes and sees Naruto smiling back at her. Her eyes widen as he sits up. Haku-chan, what's you oomph? He says and she instantly pulls him into a hug. I'm glad you're awake now, Naruto-kun. She says while he lets out a grunt. Same here, Haku-chan, but can I breathe please? He strains out. She realizes what she was doing and lets go of him while blushing as sorry. She says and he chuckles at her. Don't worry about it. Hey, why does my voice sound deeper? He asks and then gets up and looks into a mirror. When he looks into it, his eyes widen in shock. He went from 4'9" to 5'6". He also noticed his face and body had no ounce of baby fat, and his body was ripped also but not overly muscular. His hair was no longer blonde, it was now silver white and it stopped to its shoulders and it still remained spiky. He also had long spiky bangs on the sides of his head. The whisker marks on his face were gone, but he still had his deep blue cerulean eyes and he also had canines jutting out of his upper lip. Haku looks at his back and her blush becomes even redder. Naruto looks back at Haku and asks. "Where's the sword I had with me at the bridge?" Naruto asks. The ice user stops blushing and blinks for a while, then realizes what he meant. "Oh, that sword, it's laying on the corner over there. The Uchiha tried to take it a few days ago, but ended up getting zapped by the sword and so I picked it up and laid it there. Zabuza made sure he didn't try to take it again and I stayed here and looked after you." She answered and Naruto looked over to the corner and saw it laying there. "Oh, okay. Thanks, Haku. I really appreciate you looking out for me while I was unconscious," he says and she blushes in embarrassment. "You're welcome, Naruto-kun. It was the least I could do since you saved my life as well as Zabuza's." She then walks over to the white-haired teen who was now a few inches taller than her and pulls him into another hug. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. Thank you for saving the life of someone who was like a father to me. I don't know how I can ever repay you," she says as tears fell from her eyes. Naruto blushes from the contact and hugs her back. "You're welcome, Haku-chan," he says and hears Hibara speak up. "I know how she can repay you, Naruto-kun, and it involves her stripping down to her underwear and giving you a Hibara. Don't you finish that sentence," he yelled in his mind while she giggles. Naruto's brow twitches and he then turns red. Haku, I know you're enjoying this hug, but can I have some clothes please? I don't want anyone to walk in on us with me in my boxers," he says, and when she looks at the awkward position they're in, she eeps, lets him go, and heads to a closet and pulls out a short-sleeved deep blue shirt, black pants and some black ninja sandals and lays them out. Her face was now as red as an apple. "Sorry I let you get changed, Naruto-kun," she says and runs out the room while the blonde blinks a couple of times. He sighs and starts to put on the clothes. "I'm willing to bet that my life is gonna get really interesting after this," he says to himself while putting the shirt on. After the little scene that occurred between Naruto and Haku, the former blonde walks over to Yamato and picks the sword up. The okatana pulses again and Naruto gets a few flashes of the sword style, but then he shakes his head. He walks out of the room and heads downstairs where the others were and walks into the living room and through the kitchen. As he walks in, he sees his teammates, his sensei, Zabuza, Haku, Tsunami, Tazuna, and Inari. They look over and see Naruto, and the now silver-haired genin got different looks from them. From Kakashi, it was shock and confusion. From Sakura, her mouth was now on the ground and was googly-eyed. Sasuke was frowning yet eyeing the sword, wondering where the dead last got such a weapon. Tsunami was blushing a little when she saw his masculine face as did Haku, but she was blushing more because she saw what he looked like without his shirt and pants on. Tazuna eyes were as big as saucers. Inari was shocked at this also. Zabuza had a raised but not visible brow. Naruto blinks at the quietness and rubs the back of his head. Yo," Naruto says in his deeper voice while grinning sheepishly. Inari was the first to snap out of his daze and rushes over to Naruto and glumps the young devil. "Ani-san," Inari cried out and Naruto chuckles and pats his head. "Hey Squirt, how's it going?" he asks while Tsunami smiles at the sight. "Fine. Say why you are taller now and what happened to your hair and the strange marks that were on your face and where did you get that sword?" he asks while jumping up and down only for Naruto to grab his shoulders to stop him from bouncing around so much. Whoa Inari, calm down and I'll explain everything," he says while the boy blinks for a while and nods. Naruto then sighs and looks at everyone. "Okay, the reason my appearance changed is because I activated my bloodline limit," he says, getting shocked looks from his teammates and looks of confusion from Tazuna and his family. "You have a bloodline limit, Naruto? I never would have guessed. Can you tell us what it does?" Kakashi asks. "Sure, my bloodline limit is a body-based one which in a sense makes my body stronger than any normal person, meaning my body can go beyond the limits that would kill anyone else," he says while Kakashi's eye widens. "So in other words, your body can heal faster and you don't have to worry about permanently damaging any part of your body, right?" Kakashi asks again while Sasuke snorts. "Not much of a bloodline dope," he says with a smirk on his face. "Well, excuse me for not having the eyes of a monkey team." Naruto snaps back while Sasuke scoffs and looks away. "As I was saying, it not improves my body's ability to heal at a higher level, but it also makes me superhuman. My speed, strength, stamina, reflexes, and my 5 senses increase also," he says and cracks his neck. Everyone's eyes widen at that and Kakashi speaks up. "So your bloodline gives you a higher advantage than any other, huh? Interesting," the former Anbu says. Naruto nods at that. Yes, but I'm not invincible, I can still be killed, but it'll be difficult for said person to do it. Zabuza was eyeing the sword Naruto was holding in his left hand. Hey kid, at the bridge that sword appeared in your hand. Any idea how that happened? The demon of the mist asked, and now Naruto was cursing inwardly, forgetting he still had the sword with him. I don't know. Maybe it was attracted to the power I released on the bridge. That's the only option I can come up with. Again Sasuke spoke up. Then give it to me, dope. A sword like that shouldn't be in your hands. He says, and Naruto frowns at him. No, I won't. The sword chooses me as its wielder, and it will stay that way. The former blonde says, and Sasuke sneers at the blonde. Plus you already tried to steal it once, didn't you? Naruto asks, and that was when Zabuza glares at the spoiled brat, as does Haku, since she had to threaten the Uchiha by saying she would change his gender if he didn't stay away from Naruto. And what if I did? Sasuke says with a smirk on his face. Naruto wanted to curse the boy out, but not in front of Inari. You know what? Screw it. I have more important things to do than deal with your ego, Uchiha. I'm going out to work on my skills. Something you two should do since you Sasuke got your ass handed to you by Haku-chan here. He said while a tint of pink appeared on Haku's face, while Sasuke growled at Naruto. Sakura wanted to yell at Naruto for insulting her Sasuke-kun, but shut it up when she saw the ice user glare at her. Naruto then stretches his arms out. Well, I'm off to get some exercise, sensei. He says, and Kakashi nods until the Uchiha speaks up again. Why is the loser going out to train and not me? Sasuke asks, only for Kakashi to let out a frustrating sigh. Sasuke, Naruto needs to know how his bloodline works, and it's possible that when he released it, it ruined his chakra control. Am I right, Naruto? Kakashi asks, and Naruto nods. Yeah, I need to work on it again. Hey Haku-chan, do you mind helping me out? He asks her, and Haku nods, but her cheeks were still pink. Zabuza saw this and was inwardly groaning. Oh, don't tell me she has a crush on the Gaki. Great. Just great. Well, at least it's not the Uchiha. I'd have to strangle that brat if he even thought about touching Haku. He thought, and Haku left with Naruto to train in the forest. Zabuza gets up also and walks out. I'll keep an eye on the Gaki. He says and shunshuns away. Kakashi was skeptical at first, but then he sighs. Zabuza might be a missing nin, but he hasn't shown any hostility towards them since Naruto saved Haku from being raped by Gato and his henchmen. Meanwhile, Haku was leading Naruto through the forest of Nami no Kuni, and then they stop. Haku turns around and looks at the silver-haired nin. Okay Naruto-kun, what chakra exercises do you know? She asks. Tree walking, why? He responds. Okay, I want you to try and walk up that tree now. She says, getting a nod from him. He does a ram seal and focuses his chakra yokai into his feet. When he's certain he has the exact amount, he then walks towards the tallest tree and places his right foot on the trunk first. Then he places his second one on there and starts to walk up the tree. Haku watches as he walks up it but slides down a few times until he reaches a tree branch. He then sits on the tree branch and looks down at Haku. How was that? The young devil asks. A small smile appears on her face and she speaks up. Very good, but you did slip a few times. Try doing it a couple more times and not slip. She says while Naruto nods. Inari was grinning and gives Naruto a thumbs up. He keeps doing this for the next hour and a half until he stops slipping. Naruto then jumps off of the branch and lands near Haku. Good Naruto-kun. Now let's try water walking. She then motions him to follow her near a lake, which was very clear. Now this one is different from tree walking due to the structure of the surfaces. You'll have to focus even more chakra into your feet or else you'll end up getting soaked. I'll give you an example. She says and then does a ram seal and focuses chakra into her feet. She then takes one step into the water and then another. Naruto's eyes widen in amazement when he saw this. Inari's jaw drops when he saw Haku walking on water. Haku then walks back towards him while walking on the water and she walks back on the solid ground. Now you give it a try. She says and he nods. Before he did that though, he takes off his shirt, revealing his ripped body and his sandals. A tint of pink appears on Haku's face, but she shakes it off while he performs the ram seal and adds chakra to his feet. Naruto then walks over to the lake and places his right foot in the water and stumbles a little and adds more chakra to his foot. He does the same for his other foot and then stumbles across the lake a few times with the water barely above his ankles. Man, this is tough. I'll just have to add a little more chakra. He says and focuses even more chakra to his feet. Meanwhile, Zabuza was watching this from a tree trunk and was impressed with the boy. He had potential and was thinking about teaching the kid Kenjutsu, but wants to see how well he does in the chakra exercise. When the bottom of Naruto's feet is on the surface, he grins. Yes. I got it, he started to say until splash. Naruto went under. Haku's eye widened in shock and was about to dive in until another splash came and Naruto was now in the air waving his hands and legs around the air frantically. AHH. Cold. Kami, this lake is cold. He screams and runs out of the lake and starts to rub his freezing body like it had ice all over. Haku was covering her mouth trying not to laugh while Zabuza snorted at this while Hibara was laughing her off, calling her container a baka. Haku pulls out a scroll and unrolls it. A towel appears and she hands it to Naruto who takes it and rubs it all over his freezing body. He then goes back at it during the whole day and after falling into the water a few times he completes the exercise. Now he is lying back on the ground, letting the sun's rays dry him off. Haku was watching this and couldn't help but admit how cute he looks. Was she developing a crush on him? Why now of all times? She barely knew him, but she couldn't help but feel a connection to him. Naruto then gets up and brushes his hair back and swipes the water off of it. He then gets up and puts his shirt back on and grabs Yamato. Looks like the sun is setting. Ready to go, Haku-chan? Naruto asks her and she nods. Hi. Tomorrow I'll teach you how to fight on water while avoiding projectiles and physical attacks. She says and Naruto nods and they head back to the bridge builder's house. For the next 3 days Haku helps Naruto improve his chakra control and jutsu. She also taught him some of the basics to the human anatomy and how to use senbon. Apparently, they started to get closer to each other without even realizing it. Midnight. Naruto was currently sleeping in his bed wearing only a sleeveless shirt and a pair of shorts. Little did he know that the door creaked open and a shadowy figure crept up at him. It then reached for his shoulder and nudged him. It was Haku. The silver-haired nin lets out a groan and moves around in the bed. Haku nudges him a little harder and he blinks his eyes a few times and turns his head to see Haku looking down at him. Her hair was tied back into a ponytail and she was wearing a deep blue tank top that showed off her curves and her developed C-cup dot. She also wore a pair of black shorts that showed off her flawless legs. Naruto had to hold back the blush he was having as he looked at Haku. Hey Haku-chan, what's up? Naruto asks and she rubs her arm in embarrassment. Naruto-kun, I had a nightmare and I was wondering if I can stay the night with you? She asks with a blush on her face and Naruto does the same. Sure if it makes you comfortable. He responds. A small smile appears on her face and she climbs into the bed with him. Haku then wraps her arms around his waist, pushes her body against his. She then rests her head on his chest. Naruto was shocked at how forward Haku was being and his face was heating up and he felt his friend waking up from the contact of the opposite and Naruto was now sweating bullets on the inside. Oh hell no. Not now. Damn puberty and damn teenage hormones. Now Haku-chan will think I'm a pervert. Please don't let her notice and castrate me. He ranted in his mind. Hibara was seeing this and an evil grin appeared on her face. She started to put images of Naruto and Haku being intimate. The silver-haired Hanyu was now blushing up a storm and cursing Hibara for sending these images. Haku blushed when she felt Naruto's friend poking her and she was groaning inside her mind. Oh Kami, he's poking me. Maybe I shouldn't have been so forward. Damn puberty and hormones. I blame Zabuza too for this and making me read those stupid orange perverted books. Said Demon of the Mist was sleeping on the couch and sneezed. Hibara, no Yoko, stop with the images. He yelled in his mind while she giggled. I was only teasing you, my future mate. She says while the former blonde lets out a frustrating sigh. Naruto then wraps an arm around her waist, making her tense a little, but relaxes. Haku, if I'm making you uncomfortable then let me know, okay? He asks and she nods but then speaks up. Actually Naruto-kun, I was wondering if I can thank you for saving my life a few days ago at the bridge. She asks and he blinks in confusion. You already did, Haku-chan. He says and she shakes her head, then sits on top of his waist, shocking him. Not through words Naruto-kun but through another way. She says and he sputters, we don't you think we're rushing this, Haku-chan? He asks and she raises an eyebrow but then realizes what he meant. Are you talking about us being a couple? She asks and he lets out a gulp and nods. Hi. He says and she smiles at him. I would love to be your girlfriend, Naruto-kun. Is that what you want to ask? She asks him and again he nods. I don't want you to think I'm rushing this, Haku, I mean, we've gotten close during those 4 days, I just didn't think you'd see me that way. He says and she giggles and kisses him on the lightly. Well, I do. So are you gonna let me thank you or what? We don't have to be that intimate now, Naruto-kun. At least until we get to know each other better. She says with a cheeky grin on her face. Naruto lets out a sigh of relief and Haku leans over and kisses him on the even more. Naruto returns it and places his hands on her waist. They continue the make-out session for a few minutes and then stop. Naruto sits up and pulls her closer and kisses her on the more. Haku wraps her arms around his neck and brushes her hands against his soft silver white hair. Naruto brushes his hands against her legs, getting a low from her. He has his hand under her shirt and starts to caress her flat and well-toned stomach, making her shiver as she felt him move his hand up and down her torso. They stop kissing each other, and Naruto looks into her beautiful brown orbs, and she looks into his cerulean eyes. Naruto removes his hand from under her shirt and places his hands near the on of her shorts. Haku looks down and watches as he plays with the on and zipper for a while, and then unons the shorts in her zipper and sees that she is wearing a pair of blue panties under them. He then lays her on her back and pins her arms down with one hand. He then grabs the hem of her shirt with his other hand and lifts it up, revealing her flawless ivory skin-colored stomach, and Naruto noticed a few abs she had. He then leans down and starts to kiss her stomach while Haku squirms and giggles. He keeps doing this for a while, and he then kisses her navel, and she giggles even louder. "That tickles," she says, and Naruto stops and then sits on top of her. They once again engage in a lip-locking session while their hands roam around their bodies. After that, they snuggled up with Haku resting her head on the crook of his neck while he rested his head on top of hers, inhaling the scent of her hair which smelled like vanilla and honey. Morning. Naruto blinks his eyes and groans. He feels some weight on top of his bodies and opens his eyes to see the sleeping form of Haku with her arms wrapped around his waist. He couldn't help but smile at the sight because she looked like an angel. He kisses her on the forehead and she stirs for a while and opens her eyes. She looks up at Naruto and smiles. "Hey," he says, and she kisses him on the cheek. "Hey," she said back and got up of the bed and stretches. Naruto sits up and yawns, cracking his neck. He then gets up. "I'm gonna go get changed, Naruto-kun," she says, and walks out of his room. Naruto walks towards the closet and pulls out a dark red shirt and a pair of black cargo shorts that stop to his knees. He then puts on some sandals and grabs Yamato, leaving his other stuff in his room. As he headed downstairs, he saw Haku helping Tsunami cook dinner while Sasuke and Sakura were sitting at the table eating until they saw Naruto. Sakura was looking away from him, trying to hold down the blush she was getting, and Sasuke just sneered at him. Naruto shrugs off the sneer until he saw Kakashi, who was reading his book. "Yo Naruto. I see you're doing well. How is your training going?" he asks, and the silver teenager shrugs. "It's actually going well. My chakra control is improving thanks to Haku-chan," he says while she blushes. Kakashi sees this and smiles. "Oh yes, Zabuza wanted you and Haku to meet him in the forest after breakfast," he says while Naruto nods until Sakura speaks up. "Sensei, don't you think we should be more wary of that man? He is a missing nin after all," she asks while Kakashi sighs. "Sakura, as Zabuza wanted to kill us, he would have done it already when we were sleeping. So once we're done, we'll be going out to the field and work on your skills also," he says, getting a smirk from the Uchiha who thought he was gonna get better training than the dead last. After eating, Haku left with Naruto and headed into the forest where the lake was. Forest of Nami no Kuni. Zabuza was currently sitting on a log with his sword impaled into the ground and his eyes closed. Haku and Naruto appeared and he spoke up. "Good, you're both here," he says, and opens his eyes. "Now the reason why I called you out here, Gaki, is because I plan on teaching you Kinjutsu until the bridge is finished. If you show any improvement, I'll consider teaching you the Muin Satsujin Jutsu, Silent Killing Jutsu, and a few Suiten Jutsu," he says, getting a wide-eyed look from the blonde. Zabuza then pulls out a scroll and opens it. In a puff of smoke, two bakken, wooden swords, appear and he grabs one and tosses the other to Naruto, who catches it. "You remember the phrase crawl before you walk and walk before you run? The same goes for swords play. You're gonna learn the basics of it first before we even go on to the more advanced parts, and trust me when I say it's not easy," he says while Naruto nods. So during most of the morning, Zabuza was teaching Naruto the basic sword katas and was very impressed with how well he was learning them. The Gaki must have a photographic memory. It usually takes a beginner a week to get the basic sword katas down. If he can understand the basics already, then he'll be a force to be reckoned with when he masters the intermediate and advanced forms. And when that happens, I'll be in for one hell of a sword fight. The Demon of the Mist thought while he watched Naruto work on the kata with a water clone. "Alright Gaki, taki a 5-minute break," he called out to the silver-haired teenager, who nods and lets out a sigh of relief and wipes the sweat off his forehead with his arm. Haku walks over and gives him a bottle of water. "Thanks, Haku-chan," Naruto says, and takes the bottle and gulps down the water in it. Naruto then sits on a log, as does Haku, and he rests his head on her shoulder, getting a blush from the girl. Zabuza saw this and was grinning under his mask. "Blackmail. I'm never gonna let her live this down," he thought, and chuckles to himself. After the 5-minute break was over, Naruto went back to practicing the sword katas and then did some physical exercises like push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and curl-ups. The afternoon came and the three headed back to the bridge builder's house to get some lunch. Zabuza opened the door first, and Tsunami was in the kitchen making some lunch. She hears the door open and sees Naruto, Zabuza and Haku. Welcome back. How was the training? She asks and Naruto rubs his in mock pain. Painful. He says only to get smacked in the head by Zabuza. Stop crying, brat. Pain is good for you. He says while Haku giggles at her boyfriend who mumbles. I have lunch ready if you're hungry. She says and comes out with 3 plates of onigiri and sets them on the table. Thank you, Tsunami-san. Haku said while Naruto and Zabuza nodded a thanks and started to eat. After eating, Haku helped Tsunami with the dishes while Zabuza slept on the couch. Naruto was sitting on the floor with Yamato in his lap in a lotus position. The sword glowed a bluish-purple color as Naruto bonded with the sword. Mindscape. Naruto was now in his mindscape standing in the middle of a field with Yamato in his hand. The sword glowed and then it floated out of his hand and in front of him. The blade then glowed even brighter and then formed into a human shape. The glow faded and standing in front of Naruto was a silver-haired man. His hair was set back and spiky and was wearing all black from his shirt to his boots and wore a blue long coat with 3 tails and a snake-like pattern on the right side of the jacket. He looked at Naruto who was shocked and spoke up. Hello, descendant of Sparta. He says in monotone while Naruto blinks and then smiles. So you're Yamato, huh? I wonder why you're taking the form of Virgil Sparta. He asks and Yamato speaks. He was the last one to wield me, but he could never use my power at its fullest due to his desire to gain power no matter the cost, but that was due to the fact that he blamed himself for not being strong enough to save his mother. Do you remember when you used me to kill those ninja on the bridge? You were able to use a small amount of my power then, but that was due to your devil's blood awakening. He says and Naruto nods. I'm sure you were told by Hibara that I can cut through anything including the fabric of space. But that's not all. I can also cut down targets without even touching them. When you continue your training, I'll be teaching you and passing on the knowledge of the style my previous wielders used. It's called the Dark Slayer style. It's normally based on teleportation, but it is difficult to master. He explained while Naruto's eyes widen in shock. So this style basically gives me the ability to disappear and appear before my enemies? Naruto asks and the sword nods. Yes, it does. Also the sword style basically used is based on attacking with the sword and the sheath. He says getting a nod from the young devil. Remember this though, Naruto, you control the devil's power, it doesn't control you. He says and transforms back into the Okatana and lands back into Naruto's hand. Outside world. Naruto opens his eyes and then sits up and sees Zabuza still sleeping on the couch. He twitches and walks over to the man and knocks him upside the head with Yamato's sheath. Zabuza get up rubbing the lump on his head and glares at Naruto. So are you ready or do you need to count more sheep? He asks and Zabuza grumbles and gets up, grabbing his Zanbatsu. Come on Haku. He calls out and she joins them outside to continue Naruto's training. It was now 6 p.m. and Team 7 were waiting for Naruto, Zabuza and Haku to show up. Kakashi was sitting on the couch reading his book and Sasuke was brooding while Sakura was groaning from the training they did. Where is the dope at? Sasuke asks. He's probably still out training. Kakashi replies and the Uchiha scoffs. What for? He's weak. He says while his loyal fangirl nods. Don't speak that way about your teammate Sasuke. After all, he was the one who killed Gato and his men while you were unconscious. He says and turns the page in his book and Sasuke growls. Only because of that sword's power. I should have it, not that nobody. He growls and ends up getting a glare from Kakashi. If I recall, Sasuke, you ended up getting fried by the sword when you tried to steal it. Now shut it, Genin. He says while the Uchiha snorts and looks the other way. The door opened and Zabuza was the first to enter the house while Naruto walked in carrying Haku on his back. Yo. He says while Kakashi looks up and smiles. I see you and Haku are getting along well, Naruto. Kakashi says while the two blush and Naruto mumbles about perverted senseis not minding their own business and Haku sticks her tongue at the man who just laughs at them. So how did the Kenjutsu training go, Naruto? Kakashi asks and a smirk appears on the silver-haired Genin's face. Going good, I got the basic katas down already. He says and Kakashi's eye widens, but then he smiles. That's very impressive, Naruto. To get the basic katas for Kenjutsu down in less than a day is very good, especially for someone your age. He complimented while Naruto grinned. Thanks. So what did Sasuke and Sakura do? He asks and the prick spoke up. None of your business, dope. Sasuke says and Naruto is silent for a moment before saying. Huh? Did you say something, Uchiha? Naruto asks in a lazy tone while Sasuke's brow twitches and Haku giggles. In Kakashi's head, a chibi form of himself was bouncing up and down and waving a flag that said favorite student in kanji. After that little scene, they all had dinner and then headed off to bed. Haku once again was staying the night in Naruto's room and was resting her head on his chest while Naruto had an arm around her waist. Naruto was currently in his mindscape, walking around the house only to see Hibara sleeping on the bed resting her head on her tails, using them like a pillow. He walks towards her and watches as her ears twitch and in his opinion, made her look cute. He sees a strand of her red hair fall in front of her face and then he sits on the side of the bed and he reaches out and swipes it back into her hair. She then opens her eyes slowly to see the silver-haired teenager looking at her and a grin appears on her face. "Why hello there Naruto-kun. I was beginning to think you forgot about me," she says with a pout on her face while the blonde chuckles. He then scratches her behind her right ear and she lets out a low purr and presses her head against his hand. Naruto stops doing it and she looks up at him with a frustrated expression because she was enjoying that. "I came here to put up my end of the deal Habara and it was your freedom. However, whenever you want to come out, I get to decide how many tails you get to have. Does that sound fair?" He asks. Habara just shrugs and then sits up to stretch, showing off her cleavage and assets that were held in by a sleeveless red shirt. Naruto ends up turning his head so that she doesn't think he's a pervert. A sly grin appears on her face and she sits up and rests her head on his shoulder. "Don't be afraid my future mate. I won't bite unless you want me to. I also recall saying that if you want to use me for stress relief, you can." She purred into his ear making him shiver. She giggles and wraps her arms around his neck and breathes in his scent. "Also Naruto-kun, I plan on teaching you an art only our kind can use. They are called Kido or demon spells. They are ranked differently than ninjutsu are, with number 1 being the weakest and 100 being the strongest. There are 3 different forms of the demon arts and they are ways of destruction which are offensive, binding arts which are defensive or can be used to trap the target, and the healing arts. When you release me from the seal, I'll start you off from 1 to 25 and see how far you get from there, okay?" she asks and the blonde nods. "Tomorrow I'll be giving you something that'll be similar to Yamato and it is called a devil arm," she said. Naruto's eyes widen when he hears that and then speaks up. "What's a devil arm?" he asks and she then holds him even closer. "A devil arm is a weapon you gain after you defeat a powerful demon. You gain its soul and it either becomes a powerful weapon or gives you a style," she says. "Like the Dark Slayer style I gained from Yamato?" Naruto asks and she nods. "Yes, like that one. I'll be making one out of my chakra, but in order for you to gain it, you must face and defeat a doppelganger I created from my chakra. Only then will I give you the devil arm," she says and he nods. "Sounds fair. So is there anything else you want?" he asks and she giggles and kisses him on the dot. "Nothing I can think of, but you need to wake up because your girlfriend is getting close to kissing you in a place that'll make you very happy," she says and the blonde's eyes widen in shock and he then vanishes from his mindscape. Best room. Naruto suddenly opens his eyes and sees Haku, who is grinding her against his while kissing his chest and abs. His eyes become the size of dinner plates even more when she starts to unzip his shorts until he grabs her hands. Haku suddenly stops and then looks up at Naruto, who let out a sigh of relief. Haku was blinking in confusion and looks around. "Naruto-kun, what was I doing?" she asks and he points down and she follows his hand down to his unzipped pants and she turns red. "Oh Kami, did I?" she asks with a panicked look on her face and Naruto shakes his head while she lets out a sigh of relief. "I thought I was dreaming at first. Kami, what is wrong with me?" she asks and sits up with the blush on her face. "Good thing I stopped you Haku-chan, because if I didn't you would have made me very happy," he says in a joking manner and she glows red at the thought. He then wraps an arm around her waist and pulls her on his lap. "Don't feel embarrassed Haku-chan. It could have been worse. It could have me in your position," he says and kisses her cheek while she elbows him in the side. "Pervert," she says while smiling at him. Naruto chuckles and kisses her back. "I blame puberty," he says and tickles her sides and gets a giggle from her. "Stop that," she says and he does. "Haku, there's something I need to tell you about me," he says and she blinks in confusion. "Tell me what?" she asks and Naruto lets out a sigh and starts to explain how his father sealed the Kyuubi no Kitsune into him and how he was treated like a plague sign the day he could walk. After that, Haku had a look of shock and horror on her face and Naruto looked at the bed sheets with a look of sorrow and sadness on his face. That was when Haku pulled him into a hug while he quietly cried onto her shoulder. After that they fell back asleep with Naruto holding Haku close. Morning. Naruto woke up and saw Haku snuggling up to him. He then switches himself with a cage bushin and changes into his deep blue shirt and black pants. He grabs Yamato and leaps out of the window and heads to the open field. Open field. Naruto was sitting in the middle of the field meditating while Yamato was feeding him knowledge on the Dark Slayer style and how to use Yamato. During that time, red Yaokai oozed out of his body and floats away from him and lands on the ground and starts to form. The Yaokai glows and a flash appear around the field and then dies out. Before him stood a 9-foot red-furred creature that looked like a werewolf, only it had the appearance of a fox. The werewolf opens his red slitted eyes and growls at Naruto, who opens his and smirks. The werfox flexes its claws while its tail slammed onto the ground, creating a small crack in it. It then snorts red fire out of its nostrils, while Naruto's eyes become as cold as ice, and his expression becomes emotionless. "So you're the one I must defeat in order to gain Hiram's devil arm, correct?" he asks in an emotionless voice. The werfox nods and then speaks. "So you are the last of his kin. The one who betrayed his people for a bunch of fragile flesh bags. It's a shame I never got to face his sons, but you'll do. I am Keen, the demon fox of hellfire," he says and rears his head back to shoot out a streak of red-hot fire out of his mouth, while a heat wave is released from his body, and the fire passes by Naruto, who doesn't even wince from the heat. When the heat dies down, the bipedal fox looks down at Naruto, who chuckles. "Impressive display of firepower. A certain Uchiha on my team would probably have a fit if he saw what you did," he said while the fox snorts. "I suggest you get ready to face me seriously, Seed of Sparta, or I will reduce you to ashes," he says and lunges at Naruto and swipes at him with his flaming claws. Naruto leaps over the demon and twirls in midair. He then lands on his feet and then places his right hand on Yamato's hilt. "So you want a piece of me literally, eh?" he asks out loud, and the fox turns around and responds by letting out a roar. A reddish-orange circle appears under them and transports them to an arena that's surrounded by mountains, and the ground was black and had red cracks in them. Naruto looks around and chuckles. "Okay then, come and get it if you can," he says while pressing his left thumb under the guard and sees it up while smirking. Battle theme sworn through swords, be real battle. Keen lets out a roar and charges at Naruto on all fours, while said heir of Sparta waits for the fox to come closer. Keen rears his fist back and it ignites into a fiery blaze. He brings it down on Naruto, who disappears in a blur while the fist crashes into the ground and a pillar of fire rises from the attack. Naruto appears above Keen and draws Yamato. He then lands on the ground and charges at Keen, who removes his fist from the attack he just performed and swings his tail at him. Naruto leaps over it and brings Yamato down and slashes Keen across his right arm. Said fox grunts out in pain and swipes at Naruto with his left arm. Naruto ducks and then slashes him across the chest and vanishes when Keen shoots fire from his mouth. He lands on a large boulder while Keen opens his mouth again and was charging up a fire orb that was in his mouth. He unleashes a large fireball from his mouth and the red fireball heads towards Naruto at a fast rate. Naruto performs trick up to avoid the attack, which destroys the rock, leaving a smoking crater. Naruto lands on the ground and then plants Yamato on the ground and performs a few hand seals. Suiton. Tepidama. Naruto then fires off a few water bullets at the fox, and when they hit, Keen lets out a howl as steam rises from his body. "Gra. You cursed half-breed," he snarls while both of his hands are ignited by red fire and slams them into the ground. Naruto pulls Yamato out of the ground and his eyes widen when a pillar of fire rises from the ground and turns into a spinning funnel and heads for Naruto at a fast pace. The funnel leaves a trail of fire in its path as it heads for Naruto, who was cursing and barely avoids it. His left arm gets singed by the fire and he hisses in pain. Keen smirks and then charges on all fours at the blonde. Yamato glows a bluish-purple color in Naruto's hand and he charges also. Keen slashes at him with his blazing claw, but Naruto skids on the ground, stabs Yamato into Keen's chest, and the blade moves all the way down to his torso and he slashes downward while blood sprays from the fox's chest. Naruto then plants his hand on the ground and pushes upward in midair and lands back on his feet while twirling Yamato. Keen staggers from the serious injury and collapses. Naruto smirks at this, and the demon struggles to get back up while clutching his injured chest and torso. Naruto starts to run towards Keen and increases his speed. Rapid slash. Naruto cries out and starts to swing Yamato in different directions, while the invisible slashes leave cuts and gashes on Keen's body. Said demon grits his teeth in pain, and when he turns around, Naruto slices through his chest twice, leaving an X-shaped slash on his chest. The blonde skids forward for a while and stops while twirling Yamato and sheathing the sword slowly. He then sees it shut when it's fully sheathed and blood sprays out from every cut and gash from Keen's body. Keen coughs up a large amount of blood and falls to his knees while panting heavily. Naruto then walks over to the down fox, who turns his head at the blonde and grins. "No more heir of Sparta. You have proven the fact that the blood of Sparta is still strong. I surrender," he says, and Naruto nods at the fallen demon. "Here is your reward, young Sparta, the power over hellfire, courtesy to Hibara-sama," he says, and his body glows and becomes an orb of red fire. Naruto holds his hand out as the orb heads towards his extended arm, and when it makes contact, a bright light surrounds him and the arena, and when it clears, he finds himself back on the field and realizes that he's wearing a pair of gauntlets and greaves on his arms and legs. They were deep red and had an outline that changed from orange to yellow simultaneously. The greaves were the same, only they had two pairs of what looked like miniature buzz saws on the heel part, combination of Beowulf and Gilgamesh. Naruto also had a mask that covered half of his bottom face. When he clenches his fists, a pair of 3 orange glowing claws jut out and then retract as does the mask. Naruto grins and then gets into taijutsu stance with his right arm back and his left arm out with the palm open and his legs spread apart slightly. His right hand then glows red and then with a battle cry, he swings it forward and a huge red fireball shoots out of the gauntlet and ascends towards a large boulder. When it makes contact, the rock explodes and sends debris in every direction. Naruto remains in the stance for a while and then performs a series of roundhouse kicks while fire trails across his heel, getting wider and longer. He then stops and then crouches with his right arm pulled back and performs a rising uppercut. The fire emitting from the attack creates a blazing trail of flames which die out and Naruto then pauses in midair and then rolls into a ball with his right leg sticking out and does a revolving kick with fire trailing around him. His body moves downward while performing this and when he's close to the ground, he plants his right foot and arm on the ground and a powerful heat wave and flames spread outwards, burning grass in the ground as it spread and dissipates. Naruto gets up slowly and then he cups his hands together with his legs spread apart and looks towards the sky. An orb of red and white fire appears around his cupped hands. Ha! Naruto cries out as he shoots his hands forward, releasing a powerful fireball into the sky, making it resemble a comet heading for the sky. The fireball then explodes and a miniature fireball shower down from the sky in different directions. Naruto then sits up and looks at the gauntlets again and chuckles. Nice Hibara. Very nice. He says while she giggles. He then feels a tug on his stomach and he lifts his shirt and sees the seal glow white and then a red orb pops out from it and forms into a red furred kit with red slitted eyes and 2 tails swishing behind it. Naruto looks at the kit for a while and blinks and he puts his shirt down. Hi Hibara. He asks and the kid eye smiles and then leaps on Naruto's shoulder and his cheek. The gauntlets and greaves disappear and he rubs her behind the ear, getting a purr from her. I love having my ears scratched. She purrs out while he chuckles. I know you do Hibara-chan. So do you have a human form? He asks while she nods while still purring. Yamato appears, strapped to his waist, and he heads back to Tazuna's house with Hibara cuddled up in his arms. Was now walking back to the bridge builder's house, with Hibara cuddled up in his arms sleeping while her ears twitched occasionally. Naruto pushed the door open and saw Kakashi and Zabuza arm wrestling on the kitchen table. Sasuke was on the couch brooding, Sakura was ogling him, and Haku was sewing in a tear that Naruto had in one of his pants. As Naruto closed the door, the Uchiha looked up and frowned at Naruto, and Sakura just blinks at him. Where have you been, dope? The emo asks only for Naruto to snort at Sasuke. If you must know, king of emos, I went too for a morning jog. Haku looks up and sees Naruto with a fox kid in his arms. She suddenly appeared in front of Naruto and Hibara with hearts in her eyes as she saw the 2-tailed fox. Kawaii, she's so adorable. She cried out, waking Hibara up. She saw the hearts in Haku's eyes and sweat dropped. Why did she wake me up? I was having a good nap. She whined inwardly. Can I hold her, Naruto-kun? She asks with her lip out and did the puppy eyes jutsu on her boyfriend. Your Haku-chan. He says and Hibara turns her head to look at Naruto in shock and yips. Sorry Hibara. It's either Haku cuddling you or Sakura. He said telepathically and her ears fell down and glared at Naruto. Haku took her out of Naruto's arms and cuddled the fox while rubbing her behind the ear, getting a purr from Hibara. Haku giggled at this but looked at the 2 tails she had. Naruto-kun, why does this fox have 2 tails? She asks and Naruto raised an eyebrow. Oh, the tails. Well, it's a genetic mutation. I saw her being harassed by a flock of crows after my jog and chased them off. After that she followed me back to the compound. I decided to keep her with me until we got back to Konoha. He said while Haku looks at him for a while and smiles. Then she returns to cuddling and petting the fox, saying how cute and adorable she was. Zabuza managed to win the arm wrestling match and Kakashi groaned while rubbing his arm. So where is Inari, Tsunami and Tazuna? He asks and Kakashi spoke up. Tazuna and his co-workers are finished with the bridge and Tsunami and Inari are in the town getting a few things. I sent a few shadow clones to watch out for them. He stated and Naruto nodded. Well, I'm gonna go take a shower, sensei. He said and the copy nin nodded. Naruto then headed upstairs to take his shower. Hibara brushes one of her tails against Haku's neck and she giggles and continues to stroke her back and ears and saying how cute she was while Zabuza and Kakashi sweat drop. Is she always this bubbly? Kakashi asks while the demon of the mist sighs. Sadly yes. She's gonna spoil that fox to death. That's probably why her rabbit always ran away. He said. Naruto finally finished with his shower and headed back downstairs. Kakashi was reading his book while Zabuza was asleep with his sword leaned against the wall. Sakura was filing her nails and Sasuke was just glaring at the wall. Hibara was sleeping on an empty couch with her ears twitching occasionally. Hey, where's Haku-sensei? Naruto asks, and the silver-haired nin looks up at his student. Oh, she went to get some herbs for Tsunami-san in the forest. Tazuna is now on his lunch break, and I think Inari is fishing near the docks with some of the other kids. He answered. I see. Well, I'm gonna go practice my kata-sensei. Don't worry, I'll be closer to the house in case you need to find me. He answers and Kakashi nods. Hey, wait a minute, Naruto. Why are you going out train on your own? Why don't you ask us to train? We're your teammates. Sakura asks and Naruto just raises an eyebrow at her. I believe that's none of your business, Sakura, but if you must know, I need to keep training until my body can adapt to my bloodline. And the reason why I don't ask you or Mr. High and Mighty to train with me is because I don't want you distracting me or having Sasuke copying what I learned. No offense to you, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto says while the copy nin just waves his hand at him as a gesture that he didn't take offense to it. Sasuke on the other hand just scoffs at him. Like I would use my Sharingan to copy your pathetic moves, dope. Sasuke says and Naruto rolls his eyes at the boy. Just because you activated your eyes doesn't make you stronger, team. It just makes you more arrogant. You keep acting the way you are and you'll end up dead. He says and walks out the front door while Sasuke growls at the silver white-haired teenager. Who does the dead last think he is talking to me like that? I'm an Uchiha and possess the most powerful bloodline to ever exist. His power is nothing compared to mine. Just you wait, dope. I'll prove to you whose bloodline is the weakest. He thought as he planned on how to find out how great his teammate's power was. The forest of chakra. Naruto walked into the clearing with Yamato strapped to his belt. Hibara appears in a swirl of fire in her fox form, wagging her two tails. Are you gonna work on using the devil arm you gained from the chakra creature you defeated? She asks and Naruto nods. Yep. I'm also gonna work on some of the styles I'm learning from Yamato. I'm at level 1 in the Dark Slayer style and I've started on the second level. It's tough though because it is based on mostly speed, evasion, and you have to have good timing and reflexes in striking the target or avoiding them. He says while Hibara smiles. No one said it would be easy, Naruto-kun. My devil arm is a melee and elemental based weapon, but it increases your speed and strength, not that you need it since you're a devil or for now a half devil. She says and Naruto looks at Hibara and asks a question. Say Hibara, I have a question. Hibara looks at him and tilts her head to the side. What is the difference between a demon and a devil? Aren't they of the same class? He asks and the Bijuu shakes her head. No, Naruto-kun, demons and devils are of a whole different class. You see, the difference between a demon and a devil is that demons are mostly violent and crave mayhem and destruction, while devils, even though they can be just as destructive as demons, are more intelligent and only fight when they have to, and they can choose whether or not they want to be good or evil. They also try to avoid a fight. She explained and he blinks. I see, but what about you? Aren't you a demon or are you of a higher class? He asks her. Yes. I along with the other 8 Bijuu are of a higher class of demons called Daiukai or Great Demons, but we too can be like our lower raced kin, but we can control our urges. You see, Naruto, we classify ourselves into classes like you do the missing or allied nin of your village, but there's a difference when it comes to our power. Naruto blinks and sits down so she can explain. Really? So demons are ranked by class like the ninja are? Care to explain? That was when she started to speak. Okay, here's the ranking class. The rank of a demon is based off its level of intelligence and power. The ranks are based off of the letters, and they are E, D, C, B, A, S, SS, and SSS. B and D rank demons are the weakest of their kind, and they crave human flesh and blood. They are weak alone, but in a group they are a pain to fight. C-class demons have some level of intellect and strength, but they still crave blood only to a lesser extent. B-class demons have both intellect and strength that is equal, and do not rely on their basic instincts to fight. A-class demons also have heightened intellect and full control of their power, and are a force to be reckoned with. Now comes the last 3 ranks, and trust me when I say, Naruto-kun, that these 3 are the last you ever want to face. They are the S, SS, and SSS. S-class demons are very powerful, and you should never, not even for a second, let your guard down against them. They are rare to encounter in the Makai realm, and so are the SS and SSS classed ones. Those 2 ranks are at least on par with that of a kami, so pray you never have to face them. She explained, and Naruto pales at the fact of facing demons whose powers could rival a god's. Wow. So what class are you, Hibara? He asks and she smiles at him. I'm ranked as an S-class Daiukai. She says and Naruto's eyes bulge out of his head. Wow. But what about the other 8? He asks and she shrugs. They are A to B ranked with the Ichibi being the weakest. She answered and he rubs the back of his head. Sheesh, and here I thought they'd be A or S classed. Oh well. He says and his arms and legs glow red and form into the gauntlets and greaves he obtained this morning. Naruto looks at them and grins. I'm gonna name you Diablo. What do you think, Baro-chan? Naruto asks, and the vixen has a grin on her face. I like it. Now create some shadow clones and get to work. She says, and the silver-haired devil nods and does a crisscross seal. Teju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto calls out, and 30 clones appear with copies of Diablo on their arms and legs. Naruto then gets into a taijutsu stance while the rest do the same. A smirk appears on Naruto's face, and he opens and closes his fist, making the yellow-orange flaming claws jut out. Let's dance. He says with a grin on his face, and the clones grin back. Hibara leaps out of the way and watches as Naruto and the other clones engage in battle from the tree branch she landed on. 12 minutes later. Naruto had to duck from a flaming roundhouse kick his clone performed, and he counters with a flaming uppercut, striking it from the jaw. Rising Phoenix. Naruto cried out as he sent the clone flying into the air covered on red flames and disperses. Naruto turns his head to a large fireball coming straight for him. He then spins his body with his right leg out, and a circle of fire surrounds him. Boiling Dragon. He yells and kicks the fireball to the other direction, while it hits 8 of the clones, causing a huge explosion. Naruto sees the shocked look on the clone's face, and a grin appears on his face. He brings his gauntlet-covered arms up and they ignite, covering his arms in red flames. Shooting stars. He cried and releases a barrage of punches, which shoot out fireballs and head towards the cursing clone. The clone dodges, punches, and kicks some of the fireballs, but ends up getting hit by 3 of them until the rest make contact and engulfs its body. The clone disperses and Naruto lands back onto the ground. He wipes a bead of sweat off his forehead and looks around the battle arena. There were scorch marks and trees that were burned or destroyed. Diablo vanishes from his arms and legs, and Hibara lands on top of his head with an eye smile on her face. Not bad, Naruto-kun. Loved the fireworks. She says with a grin on her muzzle. Naruto rolls his eyes and moves his hand over her head and strokes her back, gently making her shiver. Let's go back to the house, Hibara-chan. All this training has made me hungry. He says, and she yips back in agreement as they head back to the house. Meanwhile, Haku was still in the forest gathering some herb for Tsunami, and behind the tree, Sasuke was watching with a scowl on his face, wondering why a strong female like her would be with the dope. Haku senses his presence, frowns. Come out, Sasuke. I know you're behind that tree. She says, and the emo walks out and towards her. Haku stands up and turns around with an impassive look on her face. She was not gonna let her guard down near this prick. He stops a few feet away from her and speaks. Why are you with the dope of all people? Someone as strong as you doesn't need a weakling like him around you. He says, and she scowls at him. I don't know what your problem is, Sasuke, but please don't insult my boyfriend like that. I choose who I am with and no one else, and as for him being a weakling. I don't think he is if he was able to kill Gato and his thugs while you were on the ground unconscious. She said while smirking inwardly. Sasuke's hand twitches at the jab but doesn't try anything yet. You should be with me, Haku. I'm an Uchiha, an elite of my village. I can give you anything you want with a snap of my fingers. If you stay with Uzumaki you'll get nothing and be nothing. He states with a smirk on his face. Haku's brow twitches but breathes in and out to calm down. I really don't care if you're an elite or not, Uchiha. I'd rather be with a nobody that cares about my feelings than with a spoiled brat who treat me like an object. Do you really think I'd leave Naruto for money and power? I could care less about status or the fact that you are an Uchiha. She says, and Sasuke's scowl becomes a sneer. Then I will make you mine. I can use my restoration rights in Konoha to make you my bride and the council will give you to me. He said with an arrogant smirk. Haku's eyes become cold as ice, and she clenches her fist, getting ready to knock the brat's teeth out. Try to force yourself on me, and I will end your days as a male, you bastard. She said in a cold tone, shocking Sasuke. She turns around to walk away and Sasuke fumes. He reaches his hand out and grabs her shoulder. You bitch, who do you think you're talking to, Bam? Haku turned around and socked Sasuke dead in the face with a right hook and sends him falling onto the ground clutching his bleeding nose. Don't touch me again, she growled, and the prick glares at her as she walks away from him again. If I can't have you then neither will the dope. He thought as he got up and performed a few hand seals, then shoots a large fireball at her back. Haku turns around and her eyes widen when the fireball heads towards her and she doesn't have enough time to jump out of the way or use a water jutsu to block it. She uses her arms to cover her face and hope the attack didn't maim her. A white blur appears in front of her with crimson gauntlets and greaves on his arms and legs. It was Naruto. He rears his leg back and kicks the fireball up into the air and it disperses. Haku uncovers her arms and sees Naruto in front her, glaring daggers at the shocked Uchiha. Naruto-kun. Was all Haku said, and his weapons disappear and he suddenly vanishes and clotheslines Sasuke in the neck with his right arm and slams Sasuke into the ground, sits on top of the emo, rears his fist back and starts to punch him in the face. Hibara leaps on Haku's shoulder and yips. Haku turns her head to see the fox and Hibara s her on the cheek. "It's okay, I'm fine," she says as Hibara wraps her tails around her neck. Naruto stops punching Sasuke in the face and gets off the Uchiha and lifts him up by the front of his shirt with both hands. "Haku, are you okay?" Naruto asks without looking at her. "Hi. Thank you, Naruto-kun," she says, and he then rears his fist back and socks Sasuke in the jaw, sending him flying into the air and hitting the ground hard. "You better have a good reason for attacking my girlfriend Uchiha," Naruto says and cracks his knuckles. Sasuke gets up and staggers a little, glaring at the silver-haired devil. "I don't have to tell you a damn thing, loser. That bitch will be mine," he growls. Naruto's eyes flash red for a second and he unstraps Yamato and tosses it behind his back and it lands next to Haku and Hibara. "Over my dead body, asshole, and don't you dare call her a bitch again. I don't know what your problem is, but I'm about to knock you off your high horse," he says and gets into a fighting stance and summons Diablo, while Sasuke activates his Sharingan with a cocky smirk on his face. They were about to charge until Kakashi and Zabuza appeared. Kakashi was in between Naruto and Sasuke and Zabuza was in front of Haku. "Naruto, what's going on here?" Kakashi asks, looking at the pissed half-devil. "This prick attacked Haku-chan with a fireball for no reason, and if I didn't deflect it, she would have gotten really hurt, and now I'm gonna beat the shit out that bastard for attacking my girlfriend," he says as his gauntlets glowed red. Zabuza turns his head around and releases some murderous intent in the Uchiha. He did what the demon of the mist said in a pissed tone and was ready to break Sasuke in half. Kakashi looks back at Sasuke, who was smirking. "Sasuke, is this true?" he asks. "So what if I attacked her? She should have taken my offer to be my woman and revive my clan. If I can't have her, then neither should the dope," he says. Big mistake. He suddenly found a large blade a few inches away from his jewels, courtesy to a pissed off Zabuza. "You attack my daughter and then insult her right in my face. I should cut off those little pebbles you call balls and shove them down your throat," he growled while Sasuke paled and shivered at the thought of having his anatomy removed by that blade. "Zabuza, please remove your blade from his reproduction organ. The last thing you want is to deal with those council members in our village. Trust me, the civilians and elders are a pain in the ass when it comes to him," he says. The man snorts and places his blade back on his back but keeps glaring at the frightened raven-haired boy. "I'm only gonna say this once, punk. Stay away from my daughter or I'll make sure you never get the chance to restore your clan," he said, adding a small dose of Kai onto Sasuke, who gulps. He looks back at Naruto and the silver-haired teen gave him a look that said, "Push your luck and I'll kick your ass." The Uchiha growls and gets up, walking away from them. "Keep the weakling, loser. You both deserve each other," he grumbles, and a tick mark appears on Naruto's head. Hibara growls at the retreating boy and Haku rubs her ear, getting a purr from her. Kakashi sighs and wonders why Sasuke and Sakura couldn't be more positive than Naruto while rubbing the back of his head. "Sorry about him, Zabuza. I'll make sure he stays away from Haku and Naruto until we leave." Knowing Naruto, he'll probably hang Sasuke by his trousers from a tree branch and leave him there, he said, smiling while Naruto did a thinking pose and a grin appeared on his face. Kakashi saw this and sweat dropped at the grin. "You're going to give Sasuke a wedgie, aren't you?" he asks in a deadpan voice. "Me? Do that? Sensei, I'm hurt that you would think that I'd do that to a fellow teammate and comrade," he says in a mocking, hurtful way while Haku giggles and Zabuza raises an invisible eyebrow. "Don't be a smartass, Naruto. You're the main reason why our cage has so many wrinkles," he replies, but then covers his mouth while Naruto looks at him in shock, but then his grin grew bigger. "Man, oh man, if Oji-san heard you say that, he'd make you do deer ranks and chase Tora until you were his age." Kakashi paled but then glared at the boy. "Tell him and I'll do a Rikiri version of the Senengarashi on you," he said. Naruto pales, and then he picks up Yamato and Haku, who eeps and makes a dash to the house. Zabuza blinks and looks at a chuckling Kakashi. "What the hell is the Senengarashi?" he asks. Kakashi motions the man to lean and he does while Kakashi whispers in his ear. Zabuza's eyes become the size of dinner plates and he looks at Kakashi, who was smiling, and starts to laugh his ass off, and after 5 minutes of laughing, he wipes the tears from his eyes and looks back at the copy nin. "So Kakashi, do you think it's possible for me and Haku to join the village?" he asks. "My eyes, it is, since Naruto and the Hokage are on very good terms with each other. That in Haku has a bloodline which are village wars, and considering the fact that you are a master of the silent kill technique and a swordsman, he'd be crazy not to let you join, but you'll probably have to do probation for 2 months and be watched by Anbu before you do active duty," he stated while the man nods. "Good. I'm tired of being hunted and having to look out for Haku. She doesn't need this life. Looking over her shoulders every day waiting for a hunter nin to attack is not what I want for her," he says and shunshuns away, as does Kakashi. Back at the house, Sasuke walks in mumbling and heads upstairs to the guest room. Sakura tried to say something to him, but he doesn't even look at her, and she sighs knowing he's having a bad day but will be better tomorrow. That was when Naruto walked in carrying a sleeping Haku bridal style, with Hibara curled up on her stomach while her ears twitched. Sakura blinks at this, but on the inside she was jealous. Wait, why am I jealous of Naruto and that Haku girl? He's an idiot. She thinks and shakes her head of those thoughts. Tsunami saw this and smiles at the sight, while Naruto carries Haku and Hibara upstairs to the other room. When he enters the room, he gently sets Haku's sleeping form on the bed, and Hibara stirs and looks up at Naruto, who does a shushing motion with his finger. Her ears just twitch, and she sleeps beside Haku, who was snoring lightly. Naruto smiles at this and removes his sandals. He then lays in the bed and wraps his arms around Haku's sleeping form, and she snuggles closer into his warm body. Sleep well, Tenchi, he thought. A week later. The bridge was finally done and Naruto, Kakashi, Zabuza, Haku, Sasuke and Sakura were standing before Tazuna, Tsunami, Inari, and the other citizens. Hibara was curled up in a ball on top of Naruto's head with her tails wrapped around his neck. Naruto was currently wearing a dark blue open jacket that stopped to his waist and wore a black sleeveless skin-tight shirt with black cargo pants and Anbu-styled boots with Yamato strapped to his left side and also wore black fingerless gloves with metal plates on them. Tazuna walked up to them and spoke. I want to thank you all for saving our village and restoring the life we thought we all lost. Naruto, I'm also thankful for you because you were the main reason why we completed the bridge and you also saved the life of my daughter and grandson, and for that I am forever in your debt. He said, and the silver-haired teenager rubbed the back of his head and blushed in embarrassment. It was nothing, old man. I was just doing my mission and protecting your family. He says, and Tazuna chuckles at the boy. I know, but still you helped my grandson by showing him that heroes still exist and you also killed Gato and his cronies. Also here. He pulls out a box from his pocket and an envelope and hands it to Naruto, who blinks but takes it. He opens the box and his eyes widen when he sees a gold-plated badge that was in the form of a tsunami wave. That, my boy, is the badge of Wave. Think of it as a thank you gift from the governor of Wave, who sends his thanks to you. In the envelope is something we got from ransacking Gato's mansion. He says while Naruto stares at the golden badge. Thanks, I can't believe I made such a huge impact on Wave. He says and puts the badge and envelope in his pocket. Inari walked up to Naruto with moist eyes, and Naruto looks down at him and places his hand on the top of his head. What this? Inari, are you crying? Naruto asks, and the boy shakes his head. And no. I just have something on my eyes. He babbles while Naruto snickers and ruffles his hair. There's nothing wrong with crying, Squirt. Everyone cries, even someone like me. He states, and that was when Inari glumps Naruto and balls into his shirt. I'm gonna miss you, Ani-san. Inari muffles while crying and Naruto pats him on the back. Same here, kid. Don't worry, when I get the chance, I'll come back and visit you. I promise. He says, and Inari lets him go and wipes his eyes with his arm. He then looks at Naruto with a smile on his face. Tsunami then walks up to Naruto and hugs him. Thanks for helping my son, Naruto-kun. She says, and Naruto blushes at the contact. Why, you're welcome, Tsunami-san. He says as she lets go of him. Sasuke was fuming at the fact that the dead last was getting all of the credit for saving them when he and Uchiha got nothing. Inari, make sure you look after your mom and make sure that your grandpa doesn't get into a sake-induced coma. He says with a huge grin on his face. Hey, my drinking isn't that bad, you forget it, Tazuna mutters, while Tsunami giggles at her father's reaction and some of the villagers snicker. Naruto ruffles Inari's hair one last time and backs away from them. It's time for us for head out, Naruto. Kakashi states, and Naruto nods. Well, this is goodbye. See you around, Inari. He says as Haku wraps her arms around his. Tsunami looks at Zabuza and winks at him. Bye, Zabuza-kun. I hope you come to visit me sometime. She says, and the man blushes under his bandaged face, while Haku and Kakashi look back at the man in shock. Did you too? Kakashi asks, only to get a glare from the demon of the mist, while he copying waves his arms up in defense, looking sheepish, and they all walk on the bridge heading back to Konoha. Kakashi and Zabuza were reading their Icha books, while Sakura was pestering Sasuke for a date. So Sasuke-kun, when we go back to Konoha, do you want go out? She asks. No. He says, not even looking at her. Oh. Okay. She says in a downcast voice. The Uchiha, however, looked at Naruto and Haku and frowned, hating the fact that a loser like him got a strong girl like her. Meanwhile, Naruto was walking with Haku and chatting with her. Just wait until we get back to Konoha, Haku-chan. I'm gonna take you to some of my favorite places. There's a ramen stand I always eat lunch at, and it's owned by a guy named Ichiraku and his daughter Ayan. And then there's the dango shop and Akimichi restaurant. The people there are cool and really nice. He says, and Haku smiles at him. I can't wait, Naruto-kun. So does that mean when we get there we can go on a date? She asks, and Naruto nods. it sure does, Haku-chan. He says, and then hears Hibari yip and the silver-haired teenager sighs. Yes, Hibari, you can join us too. He says, and she smiles at him. Sakura hears that Naruto and Haku go on a date and frowns, wondering how is it that he can get a date and she can't get one with her Sasuke-kun. Back at the bridge, Tazuna speaks up. So what should we name the bridge? He asks the villagers and Inari answers. How about the Great Naruto Bridge? His name does mean maelstrom. Inari says and Tazuna grins. That's an awesome name. The Great Naruto Bridge, named after the boy who brought hope back to Nami no Kuni. He says while the villagers cheer. The next day. Team 7 and the Momochi family made it back and walked past the main gate of Konoha, and that was when 5 Anbu appeared in front of them and one with a hawk mask walks forward. Haddock-san, can you please explain why you have missing nin Zabuza Momochi Demon of the Mist and 2 strange teenagers with you? He asks and Kakashi spoke up. Well, you see, Taka, Zabuza Momochi and his daughter, Haku Momochi, wished to seek asylum and join the ninja ranks in our village. And the other one is my student, Naruto Uzumaki. He says, and Taka looks at the silver-haired genin who waves back and then looks back at Kakashi. Why is his hair silver white like yours? He asks and Kakashi smiles. That's what I have to talk to the Hokage about. So can we please go to the tower so that I can explain? Don't worry about Zabuza since he's under my jurisdiction and I'm taking full responsibility for him and his daughter. He says and the Anbu nods. Very well, but we'll be keeping an eye on him. If he tries anything funny we'll have to use excessive force. Taka says and the Anbu shunshin away. Sasuke, Sakura, you two may go home. Naruto, I need you to come with me so that we can tell the Sandaime about your bloodline. He says and Naruto nods. Sasuke HNS and walks towards the Uchiha compound with Sakura following behind him. Kakashi, Naruto, Zabuza, Haku, and Hibari head to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Hiruzen Sarutobi was currently doing some paperwork until he heard the door knock and sighs. Come in. He says, and when the door opens, he sees Kakashi walking with the Demon of the Mist, a girl with long black hair, and a silver-haired teenager with a fox leaping on top of his head. Kakashi, would you care to explain to me why the Demon of the Mist and 2 different teenagers are with you, and where is Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura? He asks until the silver-haired boy speaks. I'm Naruto Oji-san. He says with a grin on his face. And Sarutobi's eyes bulge out of his head and he looks at Kakashi who nods with an eye smile. And Naruto? What happened to you, boy? And why is your hair silver white? He asks and Naruto rubs the back of his head. That was when Kakashi speaks up. Hokage-sama, before we talk about Naruto's change, do you wish to know why I have a missing nin and his daughter tag along with me? I also sent Sasuke and Sakura home if you were wondering. He says. Sarutobi sighs and snaps his fingers. 4 Anbu appear from the corners and Sarutobi motions them to leave and they shunshin out of the office and puts up a silencing seal. Okay, Kakashi, now start talking. He orders and the son of the White Fang does. After explaining his side, Hiruzen pulls out his pipe and lights it. He then breathes in and out while the smoke comes out of his nostrils. I see. So Naruto, care to explain about your change? He asks and Naruto nods. Well, it's like this, Oji-san. I awakened my bloodline. He says and Sarutobi nearly falls out of his chair and stands straight up. Why your bloodline? He asks and Naruto nods. Yep, and my tenant activated it so that I wouldn't die. He replied and Sarutobi's eyes widen. Don't worry, Zabuza and Haku already know about my condition. Anyways, when I activated my bloodline, I suffered from chakra exhaustion and passed out. After that, my body structure started to change so that my Kekkei Genkai can adapt to my body. He says. So what does your bloodline do? Sarutobi asks. Well, for one thing, it makes my body a lot stronger than the body of a normal human. My speed, strength, stamina, 5 senses, and my healing factor is also increased, but its limits are unknown to me right now. I'm also immune to any form of poison, and a stab to the heart or any other vital organ won't kill me, but it'll hurt like hell. He explains and Sarutobi's jaw drops to the ground. He then sighs heavily and rubs his temples. Great. You know I'll have to report this to those bakas on the council, right? He asks and Naruto shrugs. Yeah, but I'm not worried about them right now, but there's more to my bloodline than just those abilities. He says and Hiruzen blinks. Really? He says. Yep. I'm the descendant of a devil who went by the name Sparta. He says. Sarutobi's eyes were now the size of dinner plates, as does Haku and Zabuza's. A devil. Naruto, are you serious? He asks and Naruto nods with a serious look on his face. I'm dead serious, old man. Right now I'm half human, half devil. He answers. Sarutobi sits down and mumbles to himself for a while. So you are half demon, Naruto? Kakashi asks. Devil sensei. There's a difference between a demon and a devil. Devils are of a higher class, while demons are of the lower class, unless said demon is a Yokai or greater demon. Naruto answers. Kakashi just gawks at his student while Hibara's ears were twitching. Naruto was about to explain the rest until Hiruzen speaks. Hold on Naruto, before you finish let me deal with Zabuza and his daughter. Zabuza, Kakashi stated that you wanted to join our ranks correct? He asks and Zabuza nods. I'll allow you to join since we're not allies with Kiri, but since you're a missing nin I'll put you on a 2-month probation period and Anbu will be monitoring you. After that, you'll be given the status of a jonin. Since you specialize in assassination and stealth, you'll do be an A-ranked mission dealing with that field and S-ranked ones later on. Now as for Haku, since she isn't a missing nin or in the bingo book, I'll have her be a chunin. Which field would you like to work in young lady? He asks. If it's okay Hokage-sama I'd like to be a medic combat nin. She answers and he nods while pulling out a flak jacket and leaf headband and a scroll, handing them out to her. Here's your vet, headband, and scroll to be in the medical field Haku. Now can you and your father wait outside while I talk with Kakashi and Naruto? He asks and they nod and head out the door. Now then Naruto, you say you're the descendant of a devil, correct? The professor asks and Naruto nods. Yes, and his bloodline happens to be the oldest and most powerful of the other ones that have showed up in the elemental nations. He answers and Sarutobi blinks. And how did you learn of this? Sarutobi asks. Kyuubi. She was the one who told me and activated my bloodline. He answered and both ninjas' eyes widen. Kyuubi told you, and what do you mean by she? Kakashi asks and Naruto looks at him. Kyuubi is female sensei. Naruto says and Sarutobi speaks up. And how was it that she knew about your bloodline Naruto? He asks. Well, she said that my aura was familiar to that of Sparta's and his sons, and when I was dying, she said the seal that kept her and me separated also sealed away my bloodline, so she forced it to activate. But she also wanted something in return. He said. And what was it she wanted in return? He asks. Naruto pauses for a moment and speaks up once again. She wanted freedom. He answered and the two pale. Sarutobi was about to berate Naruto until said half-devil spoke up. Before you both have a heart attack let me explain the other part of my devil's blood. It can also control Kyuubi in her power and keep her from escaping or doing something I don't approve of. It's sort of like the Shodame's Mokuton abilities without the wood-based jutsu. He explained and they let out a sigh of relief. Also, have you ever wondered why Kyuubi would attack the village in the first place? He asks and Hiruzen thinks about it for a moment. Honestly Naruto, I have always wondered why Kyuubi attacked the village. Did she tell you? He asks and he nods. Yes. She said that a man wearing a black trench coat with red clouds and an orange spiral mask appeared before her, catching her off guard and casts a powerful genjutsu on her. This action caused her to go in her berserk state and attack the closest thing in her sight. Unfortunately it was Konoha and the rest you know. She also told me that the man had one eye that was red and had 3 tomos in it. That right there states that the man was an Uchiha. Naruto answered, making both look at him in shock. Its own Uchiha was responsible. Did she tell you the name of the Uchiha? Sarutobi asks and Naruto shakes his head. No. She said she'd tell me when I was strong enough to face him. He answered. I see. Sarutobi says and Naruto speaks up once again. She also wanted one other thing from me. He says. What was the other thing Naruto? Kakashi asks. The blush appears on Naruto's face and he breathes in and out and looks at them both. She wants me to her mate. He answers and their eyes bulge out of their heads and jaws hung out. I'm sorry Naruto, what did you say? Hiruzen asks. She wants me to be her mate. Naruto answered once again. Nani? Kakashi and Hiruzen yell as Naruto covered his ears while his brow twitches. Mate, and you accepted? Kakashi yells. It was either that or dying on that bridge sensei and also Oji-san. He said, getting the man's attention. When were you gonna tell me about the Yondaime, Minato Namikaze being my father? He asked and Sarutobi stiffens and Kakashi looked like he was gonna have a heart attack. Naruto, how did you know? Let me guess. Kyuubi, right? He asks and Naruto nods. Now before you explain why you didn't tell me even when I asked you, I know why. My dad made a lot of enemies during the last war and has a few inside of the village, right? He asks and Sarutobi nods. I can understand that you were looking out for me, but you could have told me about him secretly and have me promise not to reveal it. I may not be the brightest kid out there, Oji, but I'm not stupid. Anyways, Kyuubi told me about how my dad was the son of Dante, the legendary Dark Knight, and a demoness named Trish, but was found and adopted into the Namikaze clan when he was an infant. Like me, he was a devil but only a quarter due to breeding. He would have become a full devil later on, but Kyuubi attacked on that day. He explained while the two gaped at him until Kakashi spoke up. I can't believe it. All this time my sensei's son was alive. Kami, how could I have not noticed the resemblance? He says to himself. Don't sweat it, Kakashi sensei. You know now and that's what matters. Naruto said and the copy nin speaks up. You don't understand, Naruto. The day your mother, Kushina Uzumaki, became pregnant with you, I was gonna be your god brother and my teammate, Rin, was gonna be your god sister. Your mother wanted us to be there for you in case something happened to her, sensei. He explained and Naruto's eyes widen. Hey, are you serious? He asks and Kakashi nods while looking at the photo of Minato on the wall. Well then I guess that makes us family in way. Speaking of my mother, Oji-san, what happened to her? Naruto asks. Your mother died from a weak heart, Naruto. When Minato told her that he'd be sealing Kyuubi away into you and that he would die during the process, the stress from that and giving birth to you was too much for her and she had a heart attack. The medics tried everything but she died a few minutes after that. He explained and Naruto had a pained look in his eyes. Hiruzen then walked over to Minato's picture and moves it to the side, revealing a vault. Sarutobi bites his thumb and performs a few seals and places high thumb on the vault seal. It glows red and it opens up, revealing 4 scrolls and a key. One was yellow, the second one was red, the third was white, and the final one was green. These are the scrolls they left for you, Naruto. You were supposed to get them and the estate that's in the compound section of the village and near the mountains when you became a Chunin, but I believe you are ready to claim them. However, you should keep your mother's maiden name for now, but you can change it when you become a Chunin. Sarutobi says and Naruto nods while the old man hands Naruto the 4 scrolls and puts them in him inside coat pockets. That was when Hibara yawned and looked at Sarutobi and Kakashi before yipping at Naruto. Oh yeah. Hey Oji, have you met Hibara? He said, pointing to the fox who was smiling at the old man. No, I haven't. And why does she have 2 tails? He asks. Naruto snickers as Hibara leaps off of Naruto's head and lands in front of them. She then glows and her body starts to take the form of a human around Naruto's height, while Sarutobi and Kakashi's eyes widen as they watch the 2-tailed fox transform into human fox hybrid with long crimson hair, ruby red eyes, canines jutting from her upper lip. She appeared to be 15 and wore a black t-shirt and crimson red pants that hugged her hourglass figure, and she had 2 red tails that swayed back and forth, and she also had 2 red fox ears. Sarutobi and Kakashi just stare at her until Naruto spoke up. Guys, say hello to Hibara, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He says with a grin on his face. Thud. Thud. Naruto looks down at Hiruzen and Kakashi, who fainted and sweat dropped. I think I went a little overboard with this, Hibara-chan. He states and she chuckles. Naruto pulls out a small vial and hands it to Hibara. It's smelling salt. Use it on the old monkey. I have my way of waking up, sensei. Also conceal your ears and tails. He says and she nods and her ears and tails disappear, replacing her ears with human-shaped ones. Naruto unstraps Yamato from his belt, twirls it in his hand a few times, and holds it by the end of its sheath. Hibara waves the smelling salts in front of the old man's nose and he sits up instantly. What the he says and looks around only to hear Yamato's sheath make contact with Kakashi's head. Said ninja was standing up rubbing the lump on his head while Naruto had a smirk on his face while Yamato was resting on his shoulder. Now that you two are awake, say hi to Hibara, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He says and the two look at Hibara, who waved at them with a cheeky grin on her face. Hey monkeys. She says, making Hiruzen and Kakashi look back at Naruto. Naruto, how did she get out of the seal? Did it break? Hiruzen asks and praying that she didn't want vengeance. No. The seal was meant to keep her from escaping unless I granted her freedom. Plus I already told you that my devil's blood keeps her in check. He says, but then his brow twitches when she wraps her arms around his neck and presses the side of her face onto his. Hiruzen and Kakashi see this and had to suppress a perverted giggle. I see. Well Naruto, you are without a doubt the most surprising ninja in the village and I'll trust your judgment on Hibara. But everything about her being free will remain a secret. I don't want the populace getting hysteric because she is roaming around in the village in her hybrid form. He says and they nod. Kakashi, I want you to take Naruto, Hibara, Zabuza and Haku to the Namikaze estate. They'll be staying with Naruto for the time being until Zabuza's probation is finished. He says and the Cyclops nods. Hibara morphs into her fox form and leaps on Naruto's shoulder while nuzzling her face against his as the two walk out. Sarutobi sits back down in his chair and sighs. That boy is gonna be the death me. He says in a humorous tone as he got back to his paperwork. Kakashi was currently leading his student along with the Demon of the Mist and his daughter to the compound section of Konoha. Hibara was currently sleeping on top of Naruto's head. When they were walking through the streets earlier, the civilians were staring at Naruto wondering who he was. When they saw Hibara in her fox form curled up in his head, they glared at the vixen, and one man was crazy enough to try and throw a rock at the sleeping fox. Naruto caught the flying rock without looking with his hand and crushed it slowly. The dust particles fall from his hand and he glares at the scared civilian and released a small dose of Kai on the man and he ran away soiling his pants. After that, no other civilian tried to throw anything at the fox, knowing that he'd do worse than release Kai on them. So the Gaki here is the son of the Yellow Flash and the Red Death and has a bloodline that makes him half devil. I guess Kakashi here wasn't kidding when he said you were the most surprising ninja in the village. Zabuza says and a smirk appears on Naruto's face. That was when Kakashi spoke up. So Naruto, aside from Kinjutsu, what else did you learn from Zabuza and Haku? He asks and Naruto thinks about it. Let's see, Haku taught me the water walking exercise as well as kunai and senbon balancing. I also learned a few water-based jutsu and started learning the silent kill technique along with learning the basics on the human anatomy. He explained and Kakashi had a look of amazement on his face. That's very good, Naruto. To learn all of that in less than a few weeks is impressive. I guess Sasuke isn't the only prodigy in the village. He says with an eye smile and Naruto scoffs. I'm no prodigy, sensei. I just work hard. Unlike the team who expects everything to be given to him, I work my ass off to get what I want. I don't care if I am the son of the Yondaime, I'm gonna earn my respect. He states and Kakashi couldn't help but chuckle. Just like sensei. He says to himself. After they passed the Hyuga district, they came across a large gate that had what looked like a blood seal. Surrounding the gate was a mansion that was twice as big and large than the other compounds in the village. Blood seal? Naruto asks and looks at Kakashi. Just bite your thumb and add a drop of your blood on it, Naruto. Kakashi explained. The white-haired devil nods and bites his thumb. He presses it against the gate and it glows for a few seconds. After that, it opens, revealing the mansion that was surrounded by a variety of plants. In front of it was a fountain. The front was also decorated with a variety of statues. Haku had a look of awe on her face and Zabuza whistled. Nice place. He says and Kakashi nods. Yes, it is. Kushina loved gardening more than she loved ramen. If there was one thing you never do is ruin her garden. Too bad Minato-sensei learned that the hard way and ended up staying in the hospital for 2 weeks. He says and shudders at the time he saw Kushina beat Minato near an inch of his life when he accidentally destroyed it with a wind jutsu. Naruto snickers at what he says. So I basically get my temper and gardening skills from my mother as well as her love for ramen. My mom must have been one heck of a ninja to scare even dad. He states and Kakashi nods. Yep. She was the Seicho of the Anbu Black Ops. Cross paths with her and you'll suffer a fate worse than death. He replies and Zabuza speaks up. It's a shame I never got to meet her. From what I heard, her skills with a sword make a 7 swordsmen of the mist look like amateurs. She has killed a lot of Kirinin in her days, and the last thing you saw before you died was a sword coated in blood and the eyes of death staring you down. He says and Naruto whistles. Wow. Was all Naruto said as they walked towards the mansion. Naruto does the same with the door like he did with the gate. As he opened the door, the sight was amazing. The entrance hall was simple and elegant with marbled walls and a few pillars on the side with different antiques. The kitchen was nice with blue paint on the wall and marble countertops. There were 2 circular tables for eating breakfast, lunch or dinner with a smaller large group of people. The cabinets were painted white and red, as were the drawers for holding utensils, plates and glasses. Also there was a dishwasher with it as well. There were different kinds of furniture in the living room and a chandelier hung from the ceiling. Naruto decided to have the shadow clones discover the rest of the mansion, and there was also an indoor swimming pool, an indoor, outdoor, and co-ed hot spring, a weight room, 2 dojos, and a total of 30 rooms and 15 bathrooms. The last thing was an armory filled with different kinds of weapons, and there was a vault that contained the Namikaze clan's techniques. The Silver Devil looks at Zabuza and Haku. You guys can go ahead and pick a room. I need to talk to Kakashi-sensei now. He says. They both nod and pick one of the empty rooms to stay in. Naruto then turned back to Kakashi and spoke. So Aniki. What happened to Rin? He asks. Kakashi eye smiles at being called Aniki, but then he has a remorseful look on his face. I don't know, Naruto. She disappeared after that event and no one has heard from her since. She was presumed deceased afterwards. He answers. So it's possible she's alive, right? He asks and Kakashi rubs his chin in thought. It is possible. I hope she still is. So Naruto, what do you plan on doing now that you have a bloodline? He asks the former blonde. I'll just work on my Kinjutsu, Taijutsu, and learn some of my family's techniques. Hibara is teaching me the demon art since I am half devil and can use said techniques. I also want to learn Fuinjutsu since my dad was said to be a genius in the art. I mean, he did create one that let him wipe out an entire battalion of Iwanin. He stated and Kakashi nods. Yes. The Harem is a jutsu that is still feared throughout the nations. To think it took him 3 years to create that and another jutsu that helped us win the last war. Kakashi replies and Naruto blinks. What is the other one called? Naruto asks. It's called the Rasengan. He based the technique from your mother's former homeland Whirlpool country. It's a technique that uses raw chakra and doesn't use any seals. My Rikiri pale in comparison to the Rasengan since he didn't even complete it yet. He explains and Naruto's eyes were the size of dinner plates. You've got to be kidding me, this Rasengan technique isn't even completed yet, it's still that strong, maybe I can finish what he started. He says with a grin on his face, and Kakashi smiles and nods. I'm pretty sure you can, Naruto, but just to warn you, the Rasengan is a very complicated technique to master and it requires a lot of good chakra control and focus. There's a reason why it's called spiraling sphere. Well, it's getting late, Naruto. If you need any help with anything, let me know. Oh, and the team will be doing some physical training for a week. Kakashi says and Naruto nods, but then speaks up. Say, do you know any ninja who are proficient in taijutsu? He asks. Yes, I do. A jounin who goes by the name of Mido Guy. He is the taijutsu expert in the village and can perform tasks that are even tough for me. If you ever plan on meeting him, then go by training ground 9. Oh, try not to freak out over his antics. It'll be less traumatic for your brain. Trust me. He can make even someone like me lose their sanity from it. He says. Too bad you already lost yours by reading smut, being chronically late and not having a love life. Naruto says, but then he snickers when he sees his sensei stand in a corner with his head down while a grey cloud hovers over his head. He got that mouth from Kushina-san. He mutters while tears fall from his face. After that event, Kakashi left the house and Haku made dinner for them. Then they all head to bed. Naruto was sleeping in his king-sized bed wearing a grey sleeveless shirt and black shorts with Hibara, who was in her fox form curled up on his torso while he stroked her back gently with his hand. She purred and fell asleep afterwards while he looks up at the ceiling thinking. I hope I can make you both proud too, San, Ka-san. He thought and closed his eyes as he went to sleep. While he was sleeping, an ethereal spirit appeared in his room looking down at Naruto. His hair was swept back and he was wearing a monocle on his left eye and wore a purple jacket with a purple outfit. He was Sparta, the legendary Dark Knight, father to Dante, Virgil and Nero, and savior of the human realm. He looked down at his current descendant and a smirk appeared on his face. So this is my last heir to the Sparta bloodline. Naruto Namikaze Sparta. He says and looks at Hinata's sleeping form. Hibara. I wonder what your connection to the boy is. He says while her ears twitch. Hopefully he will obtain the true power of his bloodline and only then can I meet him. Hopefully you'll be the one to finish what Dante and I started with Mundus. I expect great things from you, Naruto. Show the world the power of the devils and protect those who are precious to you, for they are your true strength. He says and fades away afterwards. Morning. The sun's rays shine through the window and in front of Naruto's face. Said silver-haired devil turns his head and slowly opens his eyes. He looks up at the ceiling and then sits up while stretching his arms. He looks down to see Hibara resting on his lap and carefully picks her up and sets her sleeping form on the side of the bed. After that, he gets up and walks towards his closet and opens the door. In it were different sets of clothing. He pulls out the same coat he wore and the black shirt and pants, along with the Anbu-styled boots, while Yamato was on a sword stand. The last Sparta heads to the bathroom and takes a shower, and after he finished with that, he walked out of the bathroom with his black shirt and pants on. He looks at Hibara who was still sleeping on the bed and decides to leave out of his room. When he opened his door and walked out, he bumped into Haku who was wearing a light blue robe. Oh, I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. Haku says while Naruto pulls her into a hug and kisses her on the dot. Whatever happened to good morning, Haku-chan? He asks and she blushes in embarrassment. Sorry. Don't worry about it, Haim. Say, what time is it anyway? He asks her. 9:30. Why? Haku asks her boyfriend. My team meeting isn't until 11 o'clock, but knowing my sensei he'll be 2 hours late, so that gives us some time to hang out. Naruto said and she nods. I see. So what about breakfast? There's fresh food stocked, but it'll take a while to make it. Haku explained while Naruto shrugs. It's cool, Haku-chan, we can go out to eat. We can go over to Ichiraku's and have breakfast ramen. He suggests and she nods. Okay. Let me change real quick and you can show me this place. She says. Say, where's Zabuza? I figured that he of all people would be awake. He asks and she sighs. He's still sleeping. He sleeps a lot and it's something I'm used to, but there are times when I have to wake him up. She says and heads back to her room. That was when Hibara leaped on top of his head wagging her two tails. So we're going out to eat, Naruto-kun? She asks and Naruto nods. Yeah. So when should I tell Haku-chan about you, Hibara? He asks. After we eat. That way she doesn't end up walking in on you when you have another female in your bed and turns you into a pincushion or frozen statue. She explains while she smiles and Naruto cringes at the thought. That's the last thing I want to happen. I hope she can understand this though. He says. That was when Haku walked out of her room wearing a short-sleeved blue shirt with snowflakes on it and a pair of black jeans with sandals. Her hair was tied into a long braid and it was hanging off her right shoulder. Naruto grabs his boots, coat, and Yamato and the two head out. After Naruto closes the gate, the three of them walk out of the compound district and into the village. Haku's brow was twitching when she saw the females that were from ages 14 to 26, looking at Naruto and blushing when he turns his gaze towards them. He then turns his gaze towards Haku who looked like she was ready to kill, and a sweat drop appears on the back of his head. He then wraps an arm around her and kisses her on the cheek, getting her out of her daze. "Relax, Haku-chan," he says, and she wraps her arms around his torso. "Mine," she says, and Naruto chuckles at her actions. Habara saw this and narrowed her eyes at the ice user. The Chiraku ramen shop. The couple make it to the ramen store and move the flap over to the side and sit on the stools. "Hey Oji-san," Naruto calls out, and the man turns around to see a silver-haired teenager grinning and raises an eyebrow. "You talking to me, kid?" he asks. "Kid? Oji, it's me, Naruto," he says, and the man narrows his eyes at the boy. "No, you're not." Naruto has blonde hair and wears an orange jumpsuit, he says, and the boy slumps his shoulders while Haku giggles and he mumbles about stupid jumpsuits. "Seriously, I am Naruto," he says. "Prove it. How many bowls of ramen do you have daily?" he asks. 20. "And sometimes I'll have more if Iruka-sensei or Saruoji are treating me," he says, and the man's eyes widen. "What the heck happened to you, Naruto? And why is your hair white?" he asks. "It's a long story, old man, but first let me introduce you to my girlfriend Haku," he says, and Haku smiles at the man. Habara yips and Naruto chuckles. "Oh, and this is Habara," he says, pointing to the two-tailed fox who I smiled. "Nice to meet you both and congratulations on getting a girl gaki," he says, and Naruto blushes and rubs the back of his head. "Thanks. So where is Amni-chan?" he asks. "It's her day off and she's at a tourist site at Tenzakugai," he answers. "Oh. I really wanted her to meet Haku-chan and Habara-chan," he says. "So what can I get you two?" he asks until Habara yips. "Excuse me, I mean 3. He corrects, and Habara wags her tails. "What'll you have, Haku-chan?" Naruto asks his girlfriend. "I'll have the miso ramen," she says. "Okay, then I'll have the pork ramen and beef ramen for Habara," he says while he rubs her behind the ear, making her purr. "Alright then. 1 miso, pork, and beef ramen coming up," he said, and starts to make them. While they were eating, Naruto told Tsuchi how he activated his bloodline and that he killed Gotti and saved Wave Country. He also showed him the medal he was given by the people of Wave, and the man was impressed and proud of Naruto for what he did for the people of Wave Country. After they finished their breakfast, Naruto paid for the bowls and left the stand with Haku and Habara. So for the next 2 hours, Naruto showed Haku the sights in Konoha and the best places to shop at. He also showed her his favorite spot in the village, and that was on top of the Hokage mountain on top of his father's head statue. Haku had a look of awe on her face when she saw the sight. "This is amazing, Naruto-kun. I've never seen a beautiful sight like this ever," she says, and Naruto nods. "Yeah. I love hanging out here. Haku-chan, there's someone I want to meet before I go meet up with my team," he says. Haku blinks, and that was when Habara leaps off of Naruto's head and lands beside him. Haku raises an eyebrow, but then her eyes widen when Habara started to glow and take a human shape. The glow faded and it showed Habara in her human form. "Hello, Haku-chan," Hibber said while Haku's eyes bulged out of her head and she stutters. Naruto coughs to get her attention and speaks up. "Haku, this is Habara. The Kyuubi no Yoko," he answers, and Habara smiles at the shocked ice user. "Why, you're the Kyuubi?" Haku asks, and she nods. "Hi, and before you freak out, I'm not gonna devour your soul or raise this mud hole to the ground. I prefer to nap, have my ears scratched, and snuggle with Naruto-kun," she answers with a cheeky grin on her face while Naruto shakes his head. Haku blinks for a while and speaks up. "I see, but what does Naruto-kun have to do with you aside from being a vessel for you?" she asks. "Oh? He didn't tell you about his current condition?" she asks while her grin grew and Naruto's brow twitched. Haku nods. "Do you know about his bloodline?" she asks, and the girl nods again. "Well, what you didn't know is that Naruto is the descendant of a being that is known as a devil," she answered, and Haku's eyes widen in shock. A devil," she stutters out, and Habara nods. "Yes, but devils are higher up in the chain and are more powerful than demons. Naruto here is related to a very powerful devil who was known as Sparta, the legendary Dark Knight and savior of the human realm," she said, and Haku looks back at Naruto, who nods in agreement. "So you're a devil too, Naruto-kun?" Haku asks her boyfriend. "Hi, I am, but I'm only a half devil for now. I won't become a full-fledged one until I become an adult," he finishes. I see. But what does Habara have to do with you being a devil?" she asks, and Naruto blushes. She activated my bloodline during the incident in Wave and on the condition that once it was activated, she gained her freedom, and he says but pauses. And what Naruto-kun? She asks she wants me to be her mate. He finishes and Haku just gapes like a fish. After doing this for a while she hugs the shocked half-devil to her body and glares at Hibara. He's mine. She said possessively while Hibara pouts at the ice user. Oh come on Haku-chan. You should know that since he is the last of his clan, he'll have to go through the cry and take more than one wife. Plus, he already agreed to it. I mean who'd be stupid enough to say no to this? She asks and then does a Y pose in front of them. A blush appears on Naruto's face when he gets a good glimpse of her ass, and Haku's eye twitches at what Kyuubi was doing. And like Naruto-kun said, it was our agreement that got him to activate his bloodline and save you from that scum Gato. If he hadn't, he'd be dead and you along with the other women in that village would have been his slaves. She commented and Haku thought about it. While she did want Naruto to herself, she forgot that he was the last of a powerful clan, and there were certain laws that stated that the last male of said clan had to have more than one wife before he was 18. She releases Naruto and lets out a sigh. I'm guessing a no is out of the question. She says and Hibara nods. Damn. Oh well, as long there are girls that care more about him than about his status, then I don't see the problem. She says as she releases Naruto. Glad to hear that, and so that you know, I like females too. Hibara says with a grin on her face, causing Haku's eyes to bulge out of her head and sputter. Naruto fell on the ground laughing when he saw her reaction, but then got back up and checked his watch. Well, it's going on 1 PM. I'll see you two later, and Hibara try not to violate Haku-chan or scar her mentally. He says when he saw the gleam in her eye and the vixen pouts. Oh, I wasn't going to traumatize her. Can't I rough her up a little? She asks and Haku whimpers and clings to Naruto's arm until he gently removes her arms from his. Not unless you want to spend a whole month in your fox form. He asks and she shakes her head quickly. Well, I have to go. See ya. He then uses the mist shunshin he learned from Haku back in Wave Country and disappears. Haku looks at Hibara who was grinning at her, and Haku pales and steps back. Relax little girl, I'm not gonna take your innocence. That Naruto-kun's job, and after that, well, I'll leave that up to your imagination. She says while Haku blushes and a shiver goes up her spine. Something tells me that her imagination will kill me if I'm not careful. Haku thought until Hibara appears in front of Haku, and before she could do anything, Hibara slams her into Haku's, whose eyes widen in shock when she enters her tongue into her mouth for a while, and then removes her from Haku's and eats them. Naruto-kun wasn't kidding when he said you taste like vanilla and honey. I wonder what other tastes you have on your body. She wonders and Haku just blinks and blushes at what Hibara did. Aye Haku says, and Hibara places her hand on the girl's shoulder and they vanish in a vortex of fire. Training Ground 7. Sasuke and Sakura looked like they were ready to kill. Both Naruto and Kakashi were late and they've been here since 11 o'clock and they were nowhere in sight. That was until Naruto appeared via Shunshin with his hands in his pockets. Hey. Was all he said, and Sasuke and Sakura glare at him. That was when Kakashi appeared in a puff of smoke, smiling. Yo. He replied. You're both late. Sakura yelled while Naruto pulled out some earplugs from his ear and smirks, while Kakashi shrugs. Sorry, I got lost on the road of life. He says and Naruto blinks. And I was hanging out with my girlfriend. Oh, and FYI, I'm not late, Sakura. I appeared before Sensei did, so that actually makes me early if not on time. He states and Kakashi chuckles. He's right, Sakura. He isn't late unless I'm here. Sakura blinks and then huffs. So what are we working on today, Sensei? Naruto asks. Physical training. He answers. Why physical training, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asks. Naruto looks at her and back at Kakashi. Please answer before I make a comment on that which will piss her off. The devil asks his teacher, who rubs the back of his head and nods. Well, it's simple, Sakura. In order for our team to improve more, we need to work on making your body stronger for tougher missions, fights, etc. He answers. Brains can get you so far, Sakura. Naruto says and she blushes in embarrassment. Sasuke just scoffs and mutter about it being a waste of time. Oh, stop your bitching, Ichiha. It takes more than ninjutsu to win a battle, or are you worried that you'll have to break a sweat in order to get stronger? He asks in a sarcastic tone while said Ichiha glares at Naruto. Shut up, dope. He says. I know this sounds childish, but why don't you make me, you spoiled brat? He challenges and Sasuke glares at him. Alright, enough fighting, you two. You'll be doing physical exercises today, and that's final. If you don't like it, Sasuke, then go home. I can always report you in for insubordination. He says and Sasuke shuts up and broods. Now then, you'll start off with 20 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, and then you'll do 4 laps around the training grounds, and if I see any slacking, you'll all be doing double the amount. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now get to it. He says. Naruto shrugs and removes his coat, wearing a black sleeveless muscle shirt under it. Yamato vanishes in a swirl of light and the silver devil hangs his coat on a tree branch. Sakura sees this and has to turn away when she sees his well-toned body. 20 push-ups. No problem. Naruto says and start to do the exercise as does Sasuke and Sakura. Sakura had the hardest time with the sit-ups and push-up due to her lacking a physically formed body and the fact that she skipped lunch. Kakashi saw this and sighed inwardly. She really needs to train more. If she can't do 20 push-ups or sit-ups, then she'll have a tough time on higher-ranking missions. He said as he saw Sakura pant heavily. Sasuke was sweating slightly and Naruto looked fine and was doing one-handed push-ups. After that he completed the sit-ups and waited for his teammates to finish and started on the laps. Sasuke was fuming because the dead last was doing much better than him and Uchiha. Naruto finished his third lap as did Sasuke, but then the silver-haired ninja saw Sakura sweating and panting, trying to stay on her feet. She then collapsed and Naruto stopped his running to check on her. Sasuke passed by and scowled at the pink-haired girl and kept running. Naruto placed a hand on Sakura's shoulder and she looked up at Naruto. "Hey Sakura, are you alright?" he asks. "Why yeah, I just need to catch my breath," she says and tries to get up but falls over and Naruto catches her with one arm. "Whoa, easy Sakura. You're not okay. Didn't you at least take a small break after doing those sit-ups and push-ups?" he asks. She looks down at the ground and shakes her head. "No, I didn't. I didn't want to slow the team down," she says and Naruto frowns. "Sakura, while I can appreciate your motivation, you need to know your limits. You look terrible. Did you at least eat lunch or drink plenty of water?" he asks and she looks down in embarrassment. "I skipped lunch and only had 2 cups of water," she explained. Naruto sighs and turns around. "Here. Climb on my back and I'll carry you back to where sensei is," he says. Sakura was skeptic at first, but then climbs on his back but blushes when she feels his muscles. Naruto helps her up and wraps his arms under her legs and carries her over to Kakashi, who was reading his book and looks up. "Something wrong with Sakura, Naruto?" he asks. "She collapsed halfway through her second lap, so I brought her over here," he explained, and the man looks at Sakura. "Is this true?" he asks and the girl nods. "Where's Sasuke?" he asked and Naruto scoffs. "The jerk ran past her and didn't even bother to see if she was okay," he said and Kakashi frowns. "I see. Naruto, go on ahead and set Sakura down and finish your laps," he says. Naruto places her down next to Kakashi and goes to finish his laps. The copy nin pulls out a scroll and unrolls it, revealing a bottle of water, and pulls a small bag out of his pouch and pulls a pill out. "Sakura, this is a food pill. Eat this, drink the water and relax. You're done for the day," he tells her and she nods and eats the pill and drinks the bottle of water slowly. 10 minutes later. Kakashi was standing in front of a scowling Uchiha, a calm but pissed Naruto, and Sakura, who looked embarrassed. "Well, I have to say this training course didn't start off good," he says. Sakura looked down in shame and Sasuke's scowl deepened. "Sasuke, care to explain why you didn't check on Sakura when she collapsed during the laps?" he asks. Said Uchiha scoffed and looked away. "Why should I bother checking on the weakest member of this team? If she can't even do 2 laps then she's considered dead weight," he says, not feeling remorseful at what he said. A tick mark appeared on Naruto's head and Sakura flinched and looked like she wanted to cry. Kakashi narrowed his eye at Sasuke. "For one thing, she's your teammate and if she needs help then you need to help her out. Dead weight or not," he said in the calmest voice he could muster. Sasuke glares at him and speaks up once again. "The dope got her, so what is the problem? You said finish the training and I did. I will not waste my time trying to help weaklings," he says, and tears well up in Sakura's eyes and her arms tremble. "Sasuke, that was uncalled for," Kakashi says. Sasuke shrugs and smirks. "I don't care. She's worthless and shouldn't even be a nin," he says until he is snatched up by his collar and he now looking at a pissed off devil. "I don't know what the hell your problem is, but you will not take it out on your teammate, asshole. Get your head out of your ass and grow the up, you damn brat," he says and shoves Sasuke away. "Who the hell do you think you are, grabbing me like that, dope?" he growls and activates his Sharingan. "The one who's gonna give you a repeat of the ass kicking you got back in wave if you don't apologize to her right now," he says and cracks his knuckles and Sasuke gets into a fighting stance. "Make me loser," he challenges. "Gladly," he says and was about to charge, but then Kakashi appears between the two. "Enough. Naruto, back away," he orders and he does. Kakashi then glares coldly at Sasuke, who looked nervous. "Take your ass home, Uchiha, and tomorrow you'll be doing triple the amount, and if you mouth off one more time I'll have your license suspended for 3 months, now get," he says in a harsh voice. Sasuke scowls and walks off. Kakashi sighs and brushes his hair back with his hand. Naruto lets out a frustrating sigh. I swear sensei I am this close to kicking that brat's ass. Who the hell does he think he is treating people like that? He then looks back at Sakura who was trembling and saw tears fall from her eye. His expression softens and he walks over to the sobbing girl and once again places a hand on her shoulder. Hey Sakura, don't let what that prick said get to you. You're not weak and you're not useless. He says, trying to comfort his teammate. Sakura looks up at Naruto with tears streaming down her face. Why? She says and Naruto raises an eyebrow. Why are you trying to encourage me, Naruto? I don't deserve to be acknowledged. Sasuke's right, I'm useless and weak. She says and starts to cry. Naruto shakes his head and speaks. No, you're not weak, Sakura. You have what it takes to be a Kunoichi of this village. He says and the girl once again looks up at him. Do you really think I can? She asks Naruto, who smiles. I don't think, I know. You were the smartest girl in the academy and you still are. You know things even I or that spoiled brat doesn't and you can use that to your advantage. I believe in you and so does our sensei. He says and Kakashi nods with a smile under his mask. Sakura smiles and looks at them both while wiping her tears away. Thanks Naruto, and I'm sorry for the way I treated you in the academy and when we were younger. She says and Naruto eye smiles. It's cool, Sakura. Just try to use those right hooks on someone else other than me. He says jokingly and she blushes in embarrassment. Kakashi chuckles and speaks up. Well, training is done for today. Meet here the same time tomorrow. He says while Naruto raised an eyebrow. You mean be 2 hours late? Naruto asks while Kakashi says nothing and shunshuns away. DCH. Lazy ass. Are you gonna be okay getting home, Sakura? Naruto asks and she nods while standing up. Yes, I will. Bye, Naruto. She says as she gets up and leaves. Naruto picks up his coat and leaves the training ground, heading back to the Namikaze complex. When he approaches his home, he opens the gate and walks in while it automatically closes. He makes it halfway to the door and suddenly Yamato appears in his hand and he instantly draws the blade to block an overhead strike from Zabuza and Kubikiri Hacho. Zabuza smirks under his mask and adds more pressure. Good reflex, Gaki. You've gotten better at sensing your opponent. He says while the silver-haired devil smirks and leaps back with his blade fully drawn. Thanks, sensei. So what are the rules? He asks while the Zanbatsu wielder grins. Kinjutsu and Taijutsu only. And whoever draws blood first wins. I want to see how far your skills in swordsmanship have gotten since I trained you. He says, getting a nod from Naruto. Okay then. He says and gets into a Bataijutsu stance and his expression changes to calm, collected, and cool. Come. He says and does a come on gesture with his hand. I thought you'd never ask, kid. He says and rushes towards Naruto, who does the same. When they're a few feet away from each other, their blades clash and grind against each other while sparks fly from said swords. They break into a stalemate and leap backwards. Naruto vanishes like a blur using air trick to appear in front of a surprised Zabuza. Naruto then sheaths Yamato and swings it at Zabuza's head. Said man ducks, but sees the sheath coming back towards his head again and moves back, leaving his defense open. His eyes widen when Naruto smirks and pulls Yamato out of the sheath, performing a diagonal slash at the man's torso. Zabuza uses the Shunshin Jutsu to vanish and appear behind Naruto, with his blade raised to perform a downward slash. Naruto uses trick up to teleport above the man, who does a downward slash, but only hits a blur. Naruto smirks and does an aerial downward slash at the man's head, but Zabuza turns his blade and swings it upward to block the attack. Naruto F over the man when his attack fails and lands behind Zabuza. He then does a spinning slash at his legs and Zabuza F backwards, landing back on the ground. Once again Naruto vanishes and appears near Zabuza's left and thrusts the sword forward at the man's head. Zabuza manages to tilt his head to the side and the tip of the blade grazes his bandaged face, leaving a thin bleeding cut on his cheek. Zabuza spins and kicks Naruto in the back, sending the kid flying, but Naruto manages to flip in midair and land back on his feet. Zabuza touches his cut cheek and sees blood on his hand. His blood and chuckles. Looks like you win, Gaki. He says and places Kubikiri Hacho on his back. You drew first blood. He says while Naruto sheaths Yamato. Apparently my skills with a sword are getting better. He says while the man nods. I'll say. Your skills with a blade just keep getting better and better by the day. Must be a skill you inherited from your mother. He says and from my ancestors. Naruto thought as he and Zabuza head into the house. By the way, I met the vixen. He says and Naruto looks at him. And? Naruto asks and Zabuza shrugs. Nothing really. She's odd though. I've never seen a demon who loved pranking more than killing. He said. Kitsunes are natural born tricksters and thieves, Zabuza. But whatever you do, don't piss her off. The last thing I need is to deal with those Baka villagers. He says and Zabuza nods, knowing that pissing off a demon like Habara is a fate worse than death. "Say Gaki, what was that style you used during our little match?" He asks as he entered the small bar in the kitchen and grabs 2 bottles of water from the small cooler and tosses one to Naruto, who grabs it. It's called the Dark Slayer style. It's a style based on teleporting and using quick and precise attacks, as well as give the user the ability to evade an opponent's attacks. There are 3 levels to this style, and I've already mastered the first level. This style combined with Yamato makes me very dangerous, especially if I'm facing the person in a single battle. He explained, and Zabuza couldn't help but whistle. Dark Slayer style, eh? Fitting name for that style. I wonder what it'll be like to combine that with the Kurigaku no Jutsu. He wonders with a grin on his face, and Naruto thinks about it too, and a smirk appears on his face. I'll have to try it out sometime, Naruto said as he drinks the water out of the bottle. That was when Hibara appeared on the couch in her hybrid form, grinning, while Haku walked into the living room with a small blush on her face and sat next to Naruto, who raised an eyebrow. "What is it, Haku-chan?" Naruto asks, and the girl looks away while Hibara chuckles. "I found something very interesting in Haku's room, Naruto-kun, and I thinks it'll shock even you," she says as she pulls a little orange book out of her pockets and shows it to Naruto. Said half-devil eyes widen and looks at the blushing girl. "Haku, I'm shocked. You actually read these?" he asks, and the girl's whole face turns red and buries her face into his chest, while Zabuza snickers. "She's been reading them since she was 8 Gaki. She stole the first 2 I ever had and read them in private. I always wondered what happened to my original copies. My first thought was that she burned them, but one day I caught her reading one in her tent," he says while Haku eeps. Naruto looks at Zabuza, then back at Haku, who looked up at Naruto with a cherry red face, and back at Zabuza. "Are you telling that Haku-chan is a closet pervert?" he asks the man, who nods but then ducks when a pair of ice needle pass over his head. "Yep," he says, smiling, and then shunshuns away to his room to avoid another barrage of ice needles Haku launched. Naruto chuckles and looks at Haku's angry and embarrassed expression. She then looks at Naruto and gives him a pouty look. "It's his fault I like reading the book, Naruto-kun," he says, and Naruto kisses her on the forehead and nods. "I know, Haku-chan, it's his fault you're a closet pervert," he says, and she playfully punched him in the chest. "Shut it, meanie," she said, giving him a mocking glare, and he grins at her. "So what have you and Hibara been up to?" he asks. "Aside from seeing her read that book in private and giggle every now and then, nothing," Hibara says while Haku puffs her cheeks out, making Naruto laugh. Naruto reaches out and strokes Hibara's ear, making her purr out loud and nuzzle his hand. "This Haku is one way to keep her from teasing you so much, and if you stroke one of her tails, she'll fall asleep and not bother you," he says as he removes his hand from her ear while she fumes and blushes. "I was enjoying that, damn it. Any Naruto, tomorrow I'll start teaching you the demon arts. They are mostly spells with incantation, but when you get used to them, you can just call out the name for the spell, making the technique appear quicker, but it'll only be half as strong if you don't call out the incantation," she explained while Naruto nods. "Is it possible for me to learn them in my mindscape, Hibara?" Naruto asks. Hibara thinks about it and nods. "Yes, it is. You can learn them while you're sleeping and the knowledge will pass into your brain. Now then, when can I snuggle up with you, Naruto-kun? It gets lonely in that house inside your mind," she asks with a pout on her face. Haku looks at them both while her boyfriend sighs. "We can snuggle tonight if you stop teasing, Haku-chan. You can join too if you want, Haku-chan," he says to his girlfriend while Hibara glumps the boy and nuzzles his cheek. "It's okay. I'll stay in my room and give you and Hibara some alone time. Also, it'll take me a while to get used to Hibara liking females," she stated, and gets up and heads upstairs to her room. Hibara snickers and they head to his room. Night. Naruto was laying on his back sleeping, and Hibara, who was in her hybrid form, was resting her head on his chest, wearing a long red t-shirt that stopped above her knees. 2 of her tails were swaying slowly while her ears twitched now and then. On the sword stand, Yamato was pulsing and glowing. Hibara slowly opened her eyes to see the blade pulsing, and her eyes widen slightly, but then closes her eyes once again. "So it has finally started. I hope you're ready to face the new dangers now that your blood is awakened, Naruto-kun," she says to herself and holds him closer to her body. In the backyard of the Namikaze estate, the sounds of blades clashing and flesh hitting flesh was heard. It was Zabuza and Naruto sparring again. There were slash marks and craters everywhere. Naruto was currently dodging and blocking the man's head cleaver, wearing a black sleeveless shirt with dark blue sweats and training shoes that were white and blue. He currently had Yamato drawn, and he had a few cuts and bruises that were healing, and he was panting like crazy. "Man, Zabuza sensei may be an excellent teacher, but he's a freaking sadist. I'm beginning to think he's actually a demon in disguise," he muttered, but then ducked to avoid a horizontal slash from the man's blade and does a series of back F before landing on his feet with Yamato sheathed in a Badajutsu stance. "You need to stay on guard, kid. One slip-up could mean instant death on the battlefield. Your opponent will take that opportunity and kill you," he said in a sage-like manner. Naruto nods and his eyes grow cold and emotionless, making Zabuza grin. "Now that's a look you should keep. It'll make your opponent uneasy and screw up if fighting you," he said and charges at Naruto, who does the same. When they're a few feet away from each other, Zabuza swings his blade and Naruto vanishes. Said former Kirin grunts out in pain when a cut appears on his arm and a little blood shoots out. Naruto appears behind the man with his blade drawn. Naruto pulls a 90-degree slash at the man back and separated him from his lower body. Zabuza disperses into water, causing Naruto to scowl. Another Zabuza appears on Naruto's right and two more appear in his front and left with their blades raised. Naruto's eyes widen but return to normal and he leaps into the air as they brought down their swords and making a crater. Naruto ascends to the ground and horizontally slashes one water clone. It disperses and Naruto sidesteps a roundhouse kick that was going for his torso and strikes the clone in the throat with a sheath, making the clone stumble and then kicks it in the chest, making it land on its back. Naruto then turns to block a downward slash with his blade when the water clone attacked and grunts from the strength. He lets out a growl and pushes the clone back and severs its head from its shoulders, causing it to disperse. He then spins his blade and places it into a stabbing position and stabs the last clone in the chest, making him jerk and then disperse into water. Naruto remains in that position until he twists his body to deflect a few senbon with Yamato. Haku leaps from the trees and into the air, performing a few hand seals. The water from the clones rise and turn into needles made of water and surround Naruto. She then does a ram seal. "Sensatsu Susho," she cried out. Naruto curses and then shunshuns away while the water needle head for his former location and causes a watery explosion. Naruto skids back but senses Haku appear behind him and blocks a kick that was aimed for his head with his left arm. Said silver-hired devil then grabs her ankle with his hand and uses his foot to trip her other foot, leaving her suspended in midair. Haku uses the weight of her upper body to twist herself and send her other foot upwards to Naruto's chin. Naruto releases her ankle and F backwards while Haku lands on her feet and charges at Naruto, who barely had time to be ready, and she kicks Yamato out of his left hand and sends it scuttling across the ground. She turns her left hand into a fist and swings it at Naruto's jaw. Naruto moves his head to the right to avoid the punch and performs a knee strike to her torso. Haku manages to stop it with her hands, but Naruto uses his other leg as a spring to leap over a surprised Haku's head and lands behind her. Haku tries to backhand him, but he ducks and tackles her to the ground. He straddles her waist and pins her arms over her head while she struggled for a while. Naruto smirks and leans closer to her face, making her stop and look at his blue eyes. "Do you yield?" he asks her and she nods. "Can I get up now?" She asks, only for her answer to be a kiss on her dot. He deepens the kiss, getting out of her, but doesn't realize that Haku s her legs from under his and wraps her legs around his waist. Before Naruto realized it, she uses her weight to push him down on the ground and pins his arms, shocking the former blonde. "Hey!" he cried out while she giggles and straddles his waist. "All's fair in love and war, Naruto-kun," she says and gets off him. After she helps him up, Zabuza appears smirking. "Good job, Naruto. If I had to judge your level now, I'd say you're on par with Haku, if not a little stronger than her," he answered, causing the two teenagers' eyes to widen. "Wow. I honestly didn't think I'd be on Haku-chan's level yet. I actually thought I was close to Sasuke team's level," he answered, causing the man to snort. "Oh please, that brat is nowhere close to Haku's level," Zabuza stated. Naruto smirks and holds his hand out, causing Yamato to appear in his hand. "Well, the training session was great and all, but now I have to meet up with my team. I'll probably be gone most of the day though, but I know we're not doing any missions for a while. Do you guys have to do anything?" he asks. "I'm on probation, Gaki, so I'll more than likely be here," Zabuza answered. "I'm starting my position as a medic chunin in the hospital. One of the head medics wants to evaluate my skills as a healer," Haku says. "Okay, well, I'll see you guys later then," he says, giving Haku a kiss on the cheek and shunshuns to his room to get dressed. Team 7 Training Grounds. Sasuke was currently sitting under a rock brooding, as usual, while Sakura was sitting away from him reading a book on medical jutsu. That was when Naruto appeared in his usual attire with his hands in his pocket with Yamato strapped to his back. "Hey Sakura-chan, king of emos," Naruto says. Sakura looks up and waves at Naruto with a smile on her face, and Sasuke glares at the former blonde and looks away brooding. Naruto walks over to Sakura and sits next to her while she reads. "Reading a book on medical jutsu, Sakura-chan?" Naruto asks, getting a nod from her. I kept trying to figure out what role I could play for the team and I thought about being a combat medic," she answered. "Really? Well, that sounds cool. You seem to be more of a medic than a frontal assault ninja. I mean, you have excellent chakra control," He answered while she blushed a little at his praise. Thanks, but my current issue is my chakra level. You're practically the only one aside from Kakashi-sensei who has higher levels of chakra. She answered, crossing her arms in frustration. Oh, if it's more chakra you're worried about, then I have a solution. He says, causing her to look up. Really? What do you have in mind? She asks. Well, one way to increase your chakra levels is by doing daily exercises, or you can do the chakra control exercises. They not only help improve your chakra control, but increase your reserves. He answered, getting a nod from her. Wait, you said other chakra control exercises? Tree climbing isn't the only one? She asks, confused a little. Yeah, there's water walking, kunai balancing, senbon balancing, and waterfall climbing. He answered. Sakura's eyes went wide. Wow. So how far are you? Me? I can do tree climbing, the water walking exercise, and the kunai balancing exercise. He answered, making her eyes go wide. Why, you're already that far. Yeah, but I'm still working on kunai balancing. I screwed up one time with it and had a kunai go through my hand. Talk about agonizing pain. He answered while rubbing the back of his head. Sakura giggled at his antics and spoke up. I knew you were a baka Naruto, but that takes the cake. She said, getting a pout from him. Hey, I'm not stupid, Sakura-chan. I just have my own form of thinking just like you do. I'm more of a hands-on person while you can do better with books. He answered. Yeah, but your form of thinking got a kunai embedded into your hand. She stated while he stuck his tongue at her. Sasuke was watching this and scoffs. Idiots. He mumbles. Oh yeah, and Sakura, you should try to eat more food with fat in them like eggs, fish, and meat. They not only give you the protein you need, but when you burn the fat off you gain muscle from them after exercising. Heck, thanks to Haku-chan balancing my meals out, I feel great. Well, it was mostly my bloodline that gave me my muscle, but you know where I'm getting at. He said, pulling his sleeve up and flexing his arm. Sakura gawks at his bicep and looks at her arms and tries to hide them, making Naruto laugh. I never knew you were sensitive about your body structure, Sakura-chan. He states while she glares at him playfully. Shut it. I just haven't started to develop yet. She answered while he kept quiet. Sakura blinks and raised an eyebrow at him. What? Why are you quiet, Naruto? She asks. Naruto looks at her and blinks. Did you say something, Sakura? He asked with an innocent look on his face. Sakura's brow twitches but sighs in frustration. I'm kidding, Sakura. Hey, if you ever want help with medical training or exercise, I can get Haku-chan to help you. She's very skilled in the medical arts. He said. Really? Thanks. Say, what's it like? Sakura asks while Naruto raised an eyebrow. What is what like? Naruto asks her. What is it like to be a couple with Haku? I mean, ever since we were in Wave and left, you and her have been spending a lot of time together. I mean, I know a boyfriend and girlfriend are supposed to do that, but I want to know what is it like? She asks with curiosity in her voice. Naruto rubs the bottom of his chin in thought and thinks about it. Well, to be honest, Sakura-chan, us getting together just happened. I mean, we have a lot of things in common with each other, and well, whenever I'm around Haku I feel happy and confident. I spent most of my life alone but had help from a few people who are precious to me, and the same was with Haku until she met Zabuza. We also have a lot of fun together. That's all I can tell you in what it's like to have someone like Haku. He explained to Sakura. I see. Well, I'm happy for you, Naruto. Say, you're not being perverted around her, are you? She asks, giving him a stern look. What, are you my mother? If I want to be perverted with my girlfriend I can. Heck, she encourages it when she sways her, especially when she's wearing those tight jeans and… He pauses when he hears a perverted giggle and a tick mark appears on his head. He then vanishes, shocking Sakura and Sasuke. They suddenly hear an object making contact with someone's head and Kakashi appears rubbing the lump on his head. Naruto appears afterwards with Yamato resting on his shoulder glaring at his sensei. Hey everyone. Sorry I'm late, I had to take my uniforms to the cleaners and afterwards had to get my place fumigated. He explained while Naruto and Sakura rolled their eyes. Save it, sensei. So what do you want us to do? Naruto asks while Kakashi thinks about it. Well, you'll be learning the water walking exercise. He says, getting a raised eyebrow from Sasuke. Kakashi sees Naruto look and speaks up. Aren't you gonna ask what it is, Naruto? Kakashi asks while the blonde shakes his head. Nope. I can already do it. He answered while the man's eye widened in surprise and the returns to normal. Well, Naruto, can you give us a demonstration? Kakashi asks. Sure. The former blonde walks over to the lake, stops near the edge of it performing the ram sign. His feet low for a while and then he takes his first step on top of the surface of the lake. He then takes another step and starts to walk even further into the lake. Kakashi was impressed while Sakura was awed and amazed, while Sasuke was growling and clenching his fists in anger. Naruto stops near the middle of the lake and smirks. He then vanishes and appears next to Kakashi. "How was that, sensei?" Naruto asks the copy nin. "That was very impressive, Naruto. Did Zabuza teach you that?" he asks while Naruto shakes his head. "Nope. Haku-chan did when we were in wave. I'm working on kunai balancing also, but I'm taking my time with it because the last time I tried to balance myself on one I ended up with said kunai going through my hand. Hurt like a bitch even with my healing factor," he stated. Sasuke scoffs and smirks. "Baka. That's what you get," he says, getting a glare from Naruto and Sakura. "Shut up, Sasuke. If you think you can do this exercise better than me, then let's see you," he challenged as he was really getting tired of Sasuke's attitude. "Gladly. I'll show you what an elite can do," he says as he did what Naruto did earlier, channeling chakra into his feet. He starts to take his first step in the lake, and when he does, he ends up tripping and smacking the water face first, getting different reactions. Kakashi snorted while shaking his head, Sakura held both hands over her mouth while giggling, and Naruto was on the laughing his ass off. "Oh yeah, you showed me what an elite can do," he said while Sasuke crawled out of the lake and glared at them embarrassed. Alright now Sasuke, Sakura, you two start on the exercise, and Naruto, since you already completed this exercise you can work on what do you have to work on?" he asks. "Oh well, I'm working on creating new moves for the Dark Slayer style," he said, getting a raised eyebrow from the man. "It's a style I gained from Yamato," he said, holding the blade up. "Oh I see. You go on and work on that while Sakura and Sasuke do the exercise, and Sasuke, don't forget your punishment is to be finished before the end of our training," Kakashi said, getting a HN from the brooder. So for the entire day Naruto was working on his Dark Slayer style, while Sasuke and Sakura were working on the water walking exercise. During his training in the style he learned Judgment Cut, Dark Ringer, and Aerial Rave. He also got to the second level of Trick Up, Trick Down, Rapid Slash, and Air Trick. Naruto was currently standing in the middle of the field with his eyes closed while focusing on the area around him. His coat was currently hanging on a tree branch, and he had a few cuts, bruises, and tears in his clothes, but his cuts were healing. While he stayed motionless, 5 shadow clones of himself appeared out of nowhere with their katanas drawn and ready to bring them down on the silver white-haired Namikaze. Naruto's eyes snapped open, and he performed a series of sword strikes on the clones. He bypassed the last clone, sliced him across the waist. He stayed in the Badajutsu stance with his blade drawn for a while, until he starts to slowly sheath it. When he fully sheathes it with a C, the clones disperse and he stands back up. Naruto's chest was slowly rising up and down, and he places his hand in front of his spiky silver hair and sweeps it back, wiping the sweat out of his hair. He suddenly placed his hand on Yamato's hilt, twisted his body and swung his blade upwards when the last clone appeared with its blade raised. It then fell back in 2 pieces and dispersed while Naruto once again sheathed his sword. As he went to retrieve his jacket, he was glumped by Haku. Naruto smirks as she rubs her cheek against his while he wrapped an arm around her waist. "Hello, Haku-chan," he said while she kissed him on the cheek and had a smile on her face. "Hello, Naruto-kun. I missed you today," she says but giggles when he tickles her side. "It's only been 5 hours, Kuriheim, Ice Princess," he answered as he stops tickling her, and she pouts. "I know, but still. I missed you and your beautiful silver white hair," she said with a grin on her face and strokes his hair until Naruto leaned over and nibbled on her neck while she giggled. Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke walked in the field Naruto was practicing in and saw him with his head leaned against Haku's neck while she giggled and squirmed in his arms. Sakura was wide-eyed, Sasuke was pissed that a strong girl like her was with a no-name loser, and Kakashi had a grin under his mask. Ahem. He coughed out, making them stop what they were doing and looked to see Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke watching them. Naruto lets Haku go while she had a small blush on her face from what they did earlier. "Hey sensei, Sakura-chan, team. So are you guys finished with your training?" Naruto asks and could tell Sasuke was winded from his extra training, while Sakura, who was exhausted, seemed to be pacing herself like Naruto suggested. "Yep, they are. Sorry we ruined your moment with Haku-san," Kakashi said teasingly while the two blushed but glared at the man. "Perverted sensei. So do we need to do anything else?" Naruto asked. "Nope. We're done for today. You all can go home. Oh, and Naruto, I got a message from the Hokage saying he and the council needs to meet with you about your new bloodline after our training session. Oh, and meet here again tomorrow at 10 AM. The son of the White Fang says, getting a nod from the half-devil. Naruto groaned and nodded while the man disappeared. That was when Sasuke spoke up. "Hey Dope, why does the council want to know about your bloodline?" he asked in a demanding voice while Naruto responded with a bored expression on his face. "How should I know, team? Our sensei just told me the Hokage and the council wanted to speak to me about it. Kami, you're stupid." "Watch who you're calling stupid, Dope," Sasuke said in a dangerous tone while activating his Sharingan. Sasuke, just piss off. I really don't want to deal with you or your ego. Naruto growled while Sasuke smirked. Are you afraid to face the most powerful bloodline to ever exist, loser? Don't blame you for being afraid to fight an elite like myself. Sasuke said with arrogance in his voice until Naruto laughed out loud. You? Elite? Don't make me laugh, Sasuke, you are nowhere close to being called an elite, and as for your invincible Sharingan. Please, Haku-chan kicked your ass 6 ways to Sunday when we were on that bridge even when you activated. And if you think you're close to being on your brother's level, then you are even more stupid than I thought. He was an Anbu captain by the time he was our age. He'd beat you senseless and not even use his Sharingan. Honestly, he along with that Shisui guy and your mother are the only Uchiha I'll ever respect. He stated while pissing Sasuke off. Shut up. How the hell do you know about my brother? Tell me or I'll, Sasuke yelled until he was grabbed by his collar and pulled towards Naruto's face, who had a pissed off expression and his eyes flashed red for a second. Or you'll what, asshole? You're really starting to get on my nerves, and right now I'm 5 seconds away from sending you to the hospital. Naruto says in a dangerous tone while a bead of sweat fell down Sasuke's brow and ended up deactivating his Sharingan from the Kai Naruto was releasing. The villagers might put up with your bullshit, but I won't. My bloodline is my business, not yours. You will not demand anything from me because I'm not your punching bag. You keep this bullshit up and I'll break every bone in your body, now get thee out of my sight. Naruto says and shoves him to the ground. Sasuke slowly gets up and glares at Naruto, but stomps off to God knows where. Naruto lets out a frustrating sigh and looks at Sakura. Sorry you had to see that, Sakura-chan. Say, didn't you want to ask Haku something? Sakura blinks for a while and then realized what he meant. Oh yeah, I did. Hey Haku-san, I was wondering, would it be possible for you to teach me the medical arts? She asks while the ice user looks at her. I'm not doing this to impress that jerk Sasuke, I just want to be someone who the team can depend on. I don't want to be a burden anymore. She answered, waiting for Haku to answer. Haku looks at Naruto, who nods, and she sighs. Sure. But I'll teach you when I don't have to work in the hospital and on this training ground. Does that sound fair? Haku asks, getting a nod from the girl. Yes, and thank you, Haku-san. I won't disappoint you. Sakura says and bows to the ice user. I'll make sure you don't. And even if you are Naruto-kun's friend, I won't go easy on you, understand? Haku asks seriously. Sakura sees the serious look on her face, she nods and heads back to her house. Naruto grabs his coat from the tree branch and places it back on. I'll see you later then, Sakura-chan, and Haku-chan, I'll see you back at the mansion. Naruto says and shunsons away. Council chamber. Here is in Sarutobi along with the clan heads, elders, and civilian council. While the clan heads along with Koharu and Homura had nothing against Naruto for his condition, the civilians and Danzo were the main problem. The civilians have been demanding that Naruto be executed for being a demon and murderer, while Danzo wanted him to be a weapon, but every time that occurred Hiruzen would deny them their request and have them kicked out of his office. When he told them of Naruto possessing an ancient and rare bloodline that hasn't been seen for the last 2000 years, the civilians didn't want to believe it since they stated that his bloodline was tainted and that there was nothing more powerful than the Sharingan. Koharu and Homura, however, were indifferent but curious about this rare bloodline Naruto possessed, as were the clan heads. While they were having their own thoughts, the door opened and Naruto entered the council chamber. Sarutobi and the clan head saw him walk him and smirked. Ah, Naruto, glad you could be here. I was starting to think you had picked up Kakashi's habit of being late. He said humorously while the half-devil snorted. I find that insulting, Saruoji. There is no way I'd pick up his habits. Heck, he'd probably be late to his own funeral. He mumbled, which caused some of the clan heads to snicker. So I take it you all want to find out about my rare bloodline? He asks. That was when a civilian snorted. Even if it's rare, it's nothing compared to Uchiha-sama's. He stated out loud, which caused the clan heads to glare at him. If the team is so great, then why is he the only Uchiha alive in the village? Or did the fact that the entire clan was killed by a 14-year-old Anbu captain not go through your brain? Naruto said in a bored tone, which pissed off the merchant. Shut up. You're just jealous because you can't measure up to Uchiha-sama's greatness. He was gonna finish until he felt the sharp edge of Yamato's blade get pressed against his neck. His entire body was frozen when he looked into Naruto's eyes, and they were as cold as ice. Are you sure you want to call me that, especially since there is a law the Hokage made that prevents anyone from calling me that, especially since breaking it is considered treason and punishable by death? He asks coldly. The merchant gulps and a bead of sweat drips down his face, while the clan heads and elders were shocked and amazed at how he drew the blade without their notice. A smirk appears on Naruto's face, and he removes his blade from the man's gullet and sheathes it. I thought so. Next time you won't be so lucky, you trash. Naruto said in a dark manner. After a moment of silence, Sarutobi coughs to get everyone's attention. Now that that little scene is over, Naruto, can you tell everyone here what your ancient bloodline's abilities are? Sarutobi asks and gets a nod from the former blonde. Of course. My bloodline gives me these abilities. My speed, strength, stamina, and my 5 senses are increased beyond human levels, and I don't require chakra to enhance them. I also gained an accelerated healing factor, and no, it's not from my condition. He said as he glared at a civilian who tried to speak up but shut it up. My eyesight also gives me similar abilities that are like the Hyuga and Uchiha clans, but the difference is that my eyesight gains visions like thermal and night vision, and I can also see things move in slow motion like a fully matured Sharingan can, but I can't copy jutsu. He explained while they all absorbed this information. I also possess another ability which is energy based, and it allows me to control Kyuubi's chakra, which is similar to the Shadame's Mokuton. He finished, which made everyone's eyes widen until Danzo spoke up. You expect us to believe that this bloodline of yours can control the fox? How do we know that you didn't gain your bloodline from the beast? Danzo asks as his single eye gazed at the boy. Naruto just glared back at the man. Personally, I don't give a damn if an old fart like you doesn't believe me. Kyuubi cannot influence me in any way, shape or form thanks to my bloodline awakening in Wave Country. I also gained this weapon during the fight we had in the Battle of the Bridge, and if you teams demand me to give it to that spoiled brat, I'll gut you like a fish. He said as he once again glared at the civilian side who kept their mouths shut again. This sword is sentient and will only let me be its master, and if anyone else tries to take it, it has a defense mechanism that fries the person. Only those I trust may touch or use it. Naruto says as he holds Yamato forward, and one civilian scoffed and made an attempt to grab it by the sheath, only for the person to get fried by purple lightning and sent flying backwards and hitting the wall, rendering the person unconscious. I warned him. Idiot. He muttered as he held Yamato in front of Hiruzen, who blinked but nodded and grabbed the sword by the sheath, and nothing happened. He then let go of the sword and smirks. Now, to prove to those who can't tell the difference between a vessel and the jailed Hiashi-san, would you mind using your Byakugan and tell me what you see? Naruto asks the Hyuga clan head, who nods and activates his Byakugan. As he stares at Naruto's chakra, his eyes widen a little. Unbelievable. He said quietly, which got their attention. What do you see, Hiashi? Sume asks while the man deactivated his eyes. There is not a single trace of Kyuubi's chakra coursing through his body, just his normal chakra. He said, which got everyone's attention. So he wasn't lying. Are you happy now, you troublesome civilians? Shikaku asks in a bored tone. The civilians were silent yet glared at Naruto, who just ignored them. That was when Danzo had a gleam in his eye and spoke up. Since the boy came back to the village with a new bloodline for us, I think he should be put in the Sandame has already stated that I would be under the craw when I told him about it, you old coot, and before you even think about using me as a breeding factory, let's make one thing clear. This in my bloodline, not Konoha's, and it doesn't belong to you greedy vultures. Naruto said as he glared at the civilians and Danzo. I have agreed to do the craw, but I decide which female joins my clan. Not you. If any of you wish to make an alliance with my new clan, then I'll hear you out, but I do not wish to be in a loveless engagement. I have more respect for women, unlike most of you males in this council. He said, coldly glaring at the male civilians, who fumed while Tsume and Kaharu agreed with his notion. Now if we're done here, I'd like to go home and get some rest. He said as he looked at the Sandame, who waved him off and then shunshuns away, and then the man speaks up. Now then, everyone except for the clan heads and my 2 advisors need to leave. I need to discuss some shinobi business with them. He said and saw the civilians and Danzo start to protest until his gaze hardens. That wasn't a request, it was an order, now leave. He said harshly, which made them do the smart thing and get up and leave. Now that those incompetent fools are done, we can start discussing about Naruto creating a new clan for the village. Sarutobi asks while the clan heads and his advisors each give their own opinion on the development of the new clan. With Naruto. The last heir of Sparta made it back to his compound, and after resting and eating lunch, Habara started to teach him the demon arts. For the last couple of hours she taught him 5 Hado spells, 5 Bakudo spells, and 5 healing spells. Right now Naruto was in the backyard working on devil techniques. He had his index and middle finger aimed at a target, and electricity gathered around his fingertips. Hado no Yon. Byakurai. Naruto called out and fired a bolt of lightning at one of the targets. It pierces the target and makes a hole right in the middle of it. His fingertips sizzle for a while until the electricity dissipates. Naruto looks at his fingertips and blows the smoke off them. Well, that was fun. I have to say those Kido spells are easier to use than ninjutsu. Naruto states. Habara was watching his progress in the arts and couldn't help but smirk. He was really improving in using Yamato and his devil arm Diablo, and it took most devils in training to use the spells properly. Despite the lack of heirs, the blood of Sparta still runs strong. Naruto's gonna surpass his ancestors, especially at the rate he's going. She says to herself and watches him work on the other techniques. After that, Naruto was about to work some more in the katas for the Dark Slayer style, until Yamato pulsed. Naruto stopped to take a look at his sword and saw Hibara growling lowly. "Hibara, what is it?" Naruto asked the Fox Queen, who was on edge. "We've got company," she stated, which confused Naruto until he was suddenly leapt backwards when a flash of silver tried to strike him in the skull and was now in a battle stance ready to draw Yamato. The flash of silver appeared to be a scythe with dried blood on it and saw the glowing red eyes of what appeared to be a grey and shriveled up skeleton that was wearing a brown jester-like outfit. "What the hell is that?" Naruto asked Hibara, who was flexing her claws. "It's a hell lust. One of the 7 deadly sins of hell and members of the demon army. Don't let their appearance fool you though, they may be foot soldiers, but they're fast," she states, and that was when 8 more hell lusts appear from the darkness with their scythes ready to take Naruto apart. Naruto eyes each and every one of them in a calm and calculative manner, and Yamato pulses again, making the half-devil smirk. "I understand, Yamato. It's been a while since you've carved up some low-class demons," he said as they stepped closer. "Hibara, you stand back. I want to see what our guests are capable of," he states. Hibara looks at him and nods, stepping back. That was when 2 of them leapt into the air with their scythes raised over their head and was about to bring M down on Naruto's back, but the former blonde vanishes and a diagonal flash of silver cuts the 2 hell lusts in half and they turns into sand. Naruto had Yamato drawn, but then sheathes it while the sand hits the ground. 2 down, he said as the rest advanced onto him. "And 6 more to go," he said as he pushed Yamato up a little by its cross guard. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Namikaze09 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.